Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
That was a great good morning for pre-voting day for tomorrow that we're all looking forward to, I'm sure. At this time, I would like to call the Nash County Board of Commissioners meeting for November the 2nd to order. And it is customary for our Board of Commissioners to begin each one of our meetings with a prayer, and then we do a pledge of allegiance to the flag. This morning, Mr. Belfield will be leading us in the prayer, and Mr. Outlaw will be leading us in the pledge. During the prayer, you are welcome to stand and join us in the prayer if you like. You're welcome to use it for a time for your own prayer, or you're welcome to use it for a moment of silence, whichever you so choose to do. Mr. Belfield, if you could lead us this time, sir.
All right, please stand. And I'll say good morning to everyone. Morning. Life will be beautiful if we only live for Him. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. Our Father in heaven, we thank you for this day. We pray that it'll be a blessed day. We are here to transact business of Nash County for the citizens of Nash County. We pray, Father, that the decisions we make after the discussions, that it will be in the best interest of our citizens, and not only that, Father, it'll be pleasing in your sight. We continue to pray, Father, that we know you have the answers. We know all power is in your hand. We are in the midst of a coronavirus, and many people have died from it. Many people have gotten sick. We pray, Father, that you will give them, our professional health educators, doctors, and all pharmaceutical companies, the answer and the direction in which to go, that we can stamp out this virus. Now, Father, we are ready to begin our meeting, and I pray that you are in our midst. These blessings we ask in your name. Amen.
Amen.
Would you join us in the pledge, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioners. We're now on item number 4 on our agenda, which is approval of the minutes for the month of October. We did have 4 meetings in October, our regular meeting on October the 5th, a recess meeting for October the 14th, a recess meeting for the 26th of October, and then another recess meeting, joint meeting with the school board on the 29th of October. You have those minutes in your packet on your iPads, thinking you've had a chance to look at them. So at this time, I'd entertain any corrections or addition to either of those 4 minutes, or either we'd entertain a motion for approval. Have a motion by Commissioner Wells to approve the minutes as submitted. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Have a second from 2 ladies at the same time, and I'll take that second. And any questions on those motions? Any questions of any commissioner on the minutes? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign? Minutes stand approved as submitted. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Always does a wonderful job. At this time, I'd like to ask the board if there's any objection to me adding 1 item to the agenda as published, which is a COVID-19 Project Ordinance Amendment number 5. I'd like to add it as 16A when we get to it. Is anyone opposed to me adding that to the agenda? Seeing none, we will add that as item number 16A, COVID-19 Project Ordinance Amendment number 5. Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, we are, you ladies, come on in and sit down where you see a white sign.
That's one of my sisters.
One of your sisters, okay? You need to be over here on this side then. You can sit with family and be fine.
It's not for selling.
Good morning. As I was saying, item number 5 is public comment, and during public comment, anyone that is present today that wishes to speak to the board about anything you may have on your mind, we would be glad to hear from you. It is a sign-up period out front prior to the meeting. If you happen to miss that, I will call on the 2 people that have already signed up, and then I'll be glad to hear from you if you didn't realize you needed to sign up. We're pretty flexible with that. We do ask you to hold your comments to somewhere between 3 and 5 minutes. And the board generally does not comment after public comment section on anything you may bring to us. We always ask the staff to look into it, and then a staff member or a commissioner, if they so choose, will be getting back with you on that item. As I said, I had 2 people to sign up this morning. The first one is Dorothy Battle. And Ms. Battle, you present this morning? Yes. And if you would, just for the record, state your name and address. I know we have it, but we will.
Yes,
Glad
sir.
to hear you state again, and welcome back. Good morning.
Morning. My name is Dorothy Gibson Battle, 13343 Taylor Store Road, Nashville, NC 27856. Good morning, giving honor to God and this board. I'm not happy to come before you today, especially when celebrating Commissioner Richardson, but I must because Mr. Ted Williams will not stop disturbing our community with his gunfire. I am deeply saddened and troubled by the fact that in this time of an unprecedented virus pandemic in America and the world, the citizens of Nash County must be embodied in a real-life struggle with our Sheriff's Department, county commissioners, and other county officials over the selfish acts of one man. The problem is grounded in the fact that Mr. Ted Williams and his business, Force Yard Dog Firearms Training and Associates, insist on hiding out in the woods near my property on rented land, doing concealed carry classes illegally and firearms training on his self-proclaimed training range. We need only view his statements before this county commissioners board on October 5th, 2020 to realize the extent of his operation and activities. He makes his own rules to do as he pleases without being mandated by anyone. He admitted he has been firing centerfire rifles and has cut back the hours only does the centerfire rifles on Saturday now. This statement is not the truth. Again, the type of weapons used and the duration of is his choice. He spoke of all the clients coming to the site, even special forces. He said he teaches concealed carry classes here as he is qualified to do. He touted his friendship with Sheriff Stone, contributing to him, and said he voted for him. He also spoke of senior planning board member Alan Tyson and Sheriff Stone as practically holding his hand since he has been doing this for approximately 4 years. I have been complaining to them for 3 years. He accused people who have complained about him and the newspaper of being over emotional and dramatic to get their point across. He further implicated hunters and 4 area hunting clubs as being the source of the noise. Mr. Williams does not live here and cannot be a spokesman for our community. We know where the problem is. It is Mr. Ted Williams on the rented parcel among us. The hunters and clubs thus far have been law-abiding and have not caused any problems. No one shoots for hours other than Mr. Ted Williams on his declared shooting range. Mr. Williams knows that he is doing a business in the woods here. He knows he is being paid, and the people who pay him know. He has admitted to being paid, and this was confirmed by Mr. Adam Tyson from the planning board. Mr. Tyson and attorney Vince Durham have said Mr. Williams can shoot and train here as long as he is not being paid. How can they sit on a committee to solve the problem when they have already given their opinion? It would only take a little investigation and fact-checking for the Sheriff Department to prove what Mr. Williams is doing in our community. It is not a secret. They already know. He received a citation in 2015 on Highway 58 for the same action and complaints before this board in 2017 at the former Perry's Auto Salvage. The records show a clear pattern. Why is he allowed to continue year after year, day after day, and every weekend God sends to torment and antagonize us with obtrusive behavior? Those in authority know I have inquired and tried since 2017 to get it stopped, and phone logs will prove it. I understand the Sheriff Department funds tied to gun permits. Mr. Williams could get a place of business and do business as other instructors who pay taxes on their earnings if he wanted to be legal. This is wrong on Mr. Williams' behalf and all in authority who participate in it. Mr. Williams spoke freely of bringing judges, lawyers, law enforcement, and other officials to the site. We need this violator gone from among us. We need him to be mandated to not return. He is causing undue harm, mentally and physically, to us, from which there is no escape. We are engulfed by his gunfire like being in a war zone. You speak of progressive strategic economic development for Nash County and say that real estate is precious. Mr. Williams' use of this property is a major variance of its zone. He has no special use permit or conditional use permit and has told Mr. Tyson that he doesn't need one. He is allowed to invite whomever he pleases to this site with weapons of choice, pull them out and start shooting as long as they like, and the sheriff deputies argue that there is no violation. How primitive and unfair to those who abide by the law. We are aggrieved by Mr. Ted Williams leaving King George Avenue in Nashville and driving almost 15 miles to Taylor Store Road to hide out in the woods, shooting for hire, pleasure, and recreation. He is not in harmony with the area and endangers our public health and well-being with continuous raucous noise. He injures adjoining property, for which my property is one lot over from the site adjacent in the back portion. My family has owned this property since 1994. We have combined approximately 40 acres between Harrison Road and Taylor's Road. We have lived here since 2009. We need relief from him now. We have already suffered 4 years, like being in a war zone. There's always something to fight about, but something to fight for is the cause for one's life. As I have stated before, I am in the fight of my life for the quality and right of my life. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bowden. The other pre-signee was Mr. Cecil Williams. Mr. Williams, if you would come forward, state your name and address for the record. Good morning, sir.
Good morning. My name is Cecil
Oh,
Williams.
hold on just 1 second.
Kind of need.
Sorry,
Doing
Mr.
a
Lamb.
good job, huh?
Yeah.
I'm Cecil Williams, 6765 Jordan Road. I'm here to speak in support of our health department, our planning department, our environmental department, and I am especially here concerned about the overworked situation that we have with the environmental health department. I understand that they're roughly a month out on doing septic tank layouts. And on a project that I'm working with, we brought 18 building permits in at one time, and they told us it would take them, be out 2 to 3 months before they could get our soil septic tank laid out. We've already had a soil scientist do our work, and he says there's perk sites on every lot, but yet I understand that they have rules and regulations to go by. And I'm just here to ask that maybe the county can move some people around. Maybe they can contract with a contract person to come help catch up the backlog. Or another alternative, I don't know where it can happen or not, but if you got a soil scientist and says there's perk sites on all the lots, for a little while, we might just suspend the rules and just go it on and move forward. I just don't know. All I know is the county's been fortunate that we're getting a lot of building activity going, and having to wait to January, possibly into February, to get a building permit that was applied for in October is a little bit too much, in my personal opinion. That's just me, and that's all I just want to say about that, and I appreciate y'all's time.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Is there anyone else here that has an item on the mind which to bring before the commissioners that did not sign up? Now, if you're otherwise on the agenda, of course, we'll wait till we get to that item on the agenda. Seeing no one, I do appreciate the two speakers being here. And Mr. Lamb, if you would schedule a meeting to discuss both of these items pretty soon, I'd greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, there is an ongoing committee regarding the shooting of the guns. On Friday, we did meet about the permits for environmental, and I can explain those if the board wants me to during the manager's comments.
Okay, that would be good.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We'll move to item number 6, which is an item that I just soon not to address, but it's on my agenda, so I'm going to address it. It's presentation to honor Commissioner Lou Richardson. As you know, Ms. Richardson has been on this board for quite a while. She had the privilege of taking the seat of her husband when he moved on to a better place. And I tell you, I think I can speak for the whole board and say I really hate looking forward to December when I look to my right and will not see Miss Richardson sitting there. She's done many, many things for me personally during my 18 years on the board. She has taught me a lot. She has taught me a lot about how to be chairman. She's taught me a lot about how to be a commissioner. I do recall some years ago, she went way out on a limb for me when Mr. Mayo had to resign from this board and chose to support the idea of myself being elected chair of an opposite party, and we were in election times, and we know sometimes how important it is to stick with your party politics. I'm very pleased to say that on a local level on this board, that rarely will you ever see our party or our political affiliation come out in the way we look at things. I actually, in the 2 times I've been chairman for a number of years, I actually keep track of how many times we have a partisan vote, and it's quite frankly almost none. We don't all think alike sometimes, but when we vote, we don't generally vote along party lines. And I think Ms. Richardson has a great deal to do with that. We are going to have a resolution for her that the board is going to adopt at our next meeting on November the 16th. But today was when quite a few members of her family could be with us, and we certainly appreciate all of you being here. I don't know for the siblings or for the children she has and siblings here today what it was like having Miss Richardson for a mother, but I can tell you she has in some cases served as a mother figure for me, even though we're pretty close to the same age, quite frankly. But she has a very quiet way of letting you know what you do correct and what you do that's not correct. She is a great timekeeper for our meetings, I will tell you. If I get too long, I don't even have to look at her. I can feel her looking at me. And like you're doing now, I understand. Well, you're just going to have to bear with me this morning, Miss Lou. And I really appreciate Miss Richardson tremendously.
Thank you.
What you have done personally for me and for this board. But I just think you have made me understand as a chairman that you've got to serve your whole board.
Got to.
You got to serve all your people. I didn't do too good the first time, and I realize that now. I learned a lot.
We all do.
We do. But I'm going, as you told me, to be quiet just then. And she doesn't say a whole lot. I almost have to call on her and feel her when I think she's got something to add. And she always has something great to add. But at this time, if any other board member wishes to say anything while her family is here, and then I'm going to introduce the family, I think it'd be appropriate time to do that. Mr. Belfield, you generally have something to say, so I'm going to start on your end.
Yes, I remember she came on the board, I believe, 2 years before I did. And I was in a discussion when she decided that she would take her husband's place and finish out his term. At that time, she said, I'm just going to finish his 2 years out, and I'm going back home. And I said, Ms. Richardson, if that's all you're going to do, I don't think you ought to take it. You need to go on and decide that you're going to be a good commissioner in replacing your husband. And she did. And I was thankful that she did that. And I've enjoyed working with you these years, almost 22 years. And from time to time, we call each other and talk on the phone. And she's always calling and asking me, well, what about this? What about that? You have any thoughts on this? Or should we do this or should we do that? And we'd have a discussion. So I've enjoyed it, and I certainly will miss you being on the board.
Okay. Other commissioners? Mr. Outlaw?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've had the great honor to sit on this board for 12 years. And of course, Ms. Richardson's been on this board for 25 years, I think. I came out of business, an environment where I had a position where I had pretty much control of a lot of things. And I think I probably brought that attitude to this board when I joined it 12 years ago. I've learned a lot in the years I've been on this board. I've learned a lot from Ms. Richardson, not only Ms. Richardson, but Mr. Belfield and this entire board. And I'm just thankful that God allowed our paths to cross, because you meet people and sometimes they stick with you for a short while and sometimes they're in your heart for a long time. We're going to miss Ms. Richardson. Chairman stated that this board is a different board. And if you look across this country today, this is a different board, because we are Democrats, we're Republicans, but we're all Nash County people, and we're all proud Americans. And I'm proud to say that we work together very closely, and our Democrat friends on the other side of the aisle work just as well with us as we do with them, and we appreciate them. And we're going to miss you, Ms. Richardson. I wrote a little letter that I put in your box over there, and I hope at some point you'll get an opportunity to read it. But I love you, and I really mean that. We both worked at Abbott. I really never had the opportunity to get to know Ms. Richardson that well at Abbott, but I've come to love her. And I don't mean just agape love. I mean, I really love you, Ms. Richardson.
Thank you.
You are a special lady. And the only regret I have, and we'll rectify that on the 14th, is that your very special young man is not here today, and we will try to make him available on the 14th, and you know who that is.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you, Mr.
Mr.
Chairman.
Outlaw. Ms. Leggett?
Ms. Richardson, I haven't been on the board or had the pleasure to know you as long as some of the others, but as soon as I came on the board, you really took me under your wing and served as a role model for me, and I'm very grateful for that. You've always been so graceful, so thoughtful, and so kind. As we're called sometimes politicians, those are not the first words that come to mind, but they are for you when I think of you. In our meetings and in our discussions, you always have the most wise words. When we're having discussions and things come around to you, you always have a way to bring things in focus and tell us the right things. So with that, I say thank you.
Thank you.
God bless you, and enjoy your time to slow down.
Thank you very much.
Well, Miss Lou, I promise you I will not cry.
I'm ready.
But anyway, I just want to tell you, I actually started learning you through Kermit. And then you became on the board. Although we were of the same party, we did not do things together. But I'm going to talk about what you've done for this board. You are one that stops and thinks before you speak. I am not. I promise you, I need to do that more often. But you kind of look at all things and put it together, what's going. I want to say one thing about this board. I know we have political parties, but I honest to goodness believe that we do not let the Democrat and Republican control this board. We, the board, controls it. And I want to tell you how thankful I am for that. But you're a part of that. You can say, y'all, wait a minute. That's not the way it should go. Just stop and think. But we're going to miss you. Sue and I have saved you a seat right here between us. So you're welcome to come anytime.
Thank you.
But I just want you to know, more than this board, I appreciate your friendship.
Praise you.
And we're going to be together for a long time. And we're going to see you sitting out there in that audience. And we're going to say, wait a minute, let's have a break. We're going to get in the back room. But anyway, just thank you for all you have done for Nash County, all you have done for this board, and most of all, what you have done for me. Thank you.
Mr. Cole?
So what we just heard, when Ms. Lou speaks, everybody listens. When Ms. Lou speaks, everybody listens, and I think, I've been on this board 4 years now, and she's been a great influence to me. I've known Ms. Lou since before this, but I learned to have a lot of respect for her, and I told her when she decided she wasn't going to run, I'm mad with her, and I've been mad with her ever since. But I love her. To know her is to love her, and she's been a great influence to me, and she's great on this board. And like when Ms. Lou voices her opinion, she's thought about it. You know, she ain't like me and Wayne. You know, we'll just blare it out there. But when Ms. Lou tells something, she's put her mind to it, and she's got an answer that makes a lot of sense, and she has a lot of respect to everybody on this board and everybody that knows her. Thank you, Ms. Lou.
Thank you very much.
I'll sum up the commissioner's comments by just saying, I think what Ms. Richardson is known for most in her service to the board is she always looked after the elderly, and she always looked after the kids.
Totally.
Particularly in my first year or two, I came on this board with the idea that Nash County needed recreation. We didn't have recreation. I didn't have a tremendous amount of support when we first started that. In fact, I remember one key vote that I was told prior to the vote that I didn't have the votes. I won't tell who told that, but I appreciate you telling me. But she stuck with me as far as recreation. She was on board from day one. And I hope, Ms. Richardson, every time you go by the park at Red Oak, our first park, you'll look to your left going into town, to your right coming out of town, and see all that goes on out there. And remember the large part that you played in getting that started out there. We both believe that if we could start the recreation program and every kid that was on a ball field or whatever they were doing out at the park was a kid that maybe our sheriff, Chief Stone in the back, didn't have in his wheelhouse to have to look after. And so that's kind of how we sold it. And I recall the day that Mr. Mayo came to me after Miss Richardson and I think he thought that was an odd pair to join up, quite frankly. But he told me one day, he said, your recreation stuff, I still don't necessarily believe in it, but it looks like you've got your votes, and therefore I will not hold you up anymore. I'll step out of the way. And he, a few years later, told me how good a thing that we had done by starting that. So I do thank you for helping get that started as well, Ms. Richardson. She's going to call time on me the second time, which I try to not let that happen because she gets a little bit meaner every time she calls, rings the clock on me. Ms. Richardson, I have the list here, but do you want to introduce your family that's here this morning, I think it would be more appropriate for you to do it. You know each one of them, and way better than I do. It's a distinct list, I will say that, and I'm pleased that all of you are here this morning. And I hate that we are missing one of your sons, but you go ahead and introduce those.
All right, I sure will. No, due to the
If you would
virus,
stand, excuse me, Ms. Richardson, when she introduces you, if you're able to.
due to the virus and things going on in our lives, I have quite a few that is not here, even some that was here 5 years ago when I had a presentation from the association, and that is my son, and that lives in Lumberton, who is a retired judge, and that is Herbert Richardson. And here today is with me all the way from Omaha, Nebraska, is my younger daughter, Melba, and her husband, and she is a school teacher right on, and both of those are ministers. So this is my younger daughter, this is my baby.
She's my baby too.
That's important.
Cannot ignore that, he's one of the best. And another couple is my daughter, which is employed by Nash County, Mary Clinton, and her husband, Robert, who's my lifesaver so many times. Best in the world. You know, it's so good to have in-laws and say they're good, and you just part of your family, and that's a blessing. Thank you. And I have my oldest son, which he thinks he's my boss, but I'll let him know he's not. And his wife, Charlene. Good morning, now you can sit down. No, sit down. See, I know I can't turn him loose. I have 3 sisters here. I still have 7 sisters living there. And I have 3 here
Great.
with me today. My oldest is Edith Norwood. I know she don't hear good like me. My sister from Rocky Mount, Ruby Winstead, and my sister from my neighbor, Mary Clinton. I'm sorry, Mary Mills. Got hung up on the Mary. But you see what kind of family I have, and I have one brother who's probably working today. And you know what I'm so proud of is, I have a military family. Mary and Robert. Robert is a military man. His son is retired, both of them from the military. Mr. Hooker back there is retired military. My son over here is retired military, which I had a daughter was military, and I have 3 brothers that was military. So you see why the military forces is so important, because not just of what my family did, it's for what they do for our country all over, and we are so proud of it. So that is my family as of today. And while I'm talking, see, I'm in charge, they must Dave, so hush. I can tell him one time, hush. You know, in '95, when I took this position, I came on board with this fine group of people. I remember 3 that is still with us that was with me at that time. And we started over in the courthouse. In a little room, you had to walk sideways to get around the table. It was a round table. Mr. Durham, our attorney, know that. Mr. Durham and 2 Waynes, no reflection on you, are still with us, and they were my lifesaver at that particular time, and Mr. Durham is still with us. Thank you. But you know, that was a dark time, but you know, when God says do something, you're not supposed, and I hope everybody knows you don't argue with him. You just stand back and plead with him a little bit, but then he tells you that there's a time and a season for everything. So I think now's my time, he says, now's my time and season to move side and let Nash County and its citizens and programs move forward, because when you give it your best, my husband's always saying, when you give it your best and when you do a good job, don't stay in it and mess it up. That was his saying. So I feel like the Lord is saying to me, and my husband is saying to me is, and bless my children have blessed me on this, it's time. So, I mean, Nash County has been so good, and all the people that I work with, and as my county manager, he ducked out on me. No,
He
they're
did know
here.
that.
Okay, I see him, bless the Lord. And Miss Janice Stevens, she's our lifesaver here too. And because if she didn't keep up with us, I think we'd lose ourselves sometime. So these are the people that we're working with now, and I totally appreciate it. And some said, well, this is not your last meeting. We have a second meeting, what, in 2 weeks?
Yes, ma'am.
But this is I call it the official meeting, the first of the month. So whether we're here on the next meeting or not, this is I won't say goodbye, but farewell, but I'm moving on. But I will be sitting in the corner, as I told them all. I'll be watching it when they see me raise my finger, you know what that means. So I thank you all for your support, all Nash County, and especially District 1. I will never forget you, and I appreciate you because, hey, the work will not start. I tell people I just change lanes and slow down a little bit. And I just think it's time and it's good. And I appreciate everybody coming and sharing with us today. This is a happy day, not only for myself, but we got another presentation coming up. And I'm just as proud of that as I can be too. So, but we are a family. We look after each other, and that's the way God would want us to be. And we're going to continue to do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Richardson. Since I have the mic back, sir, if you really wanted to say something about your mother, I'll be glad to hear from you at this point in time. That's your choice.
Seriously,
Put your mask down.
to everybody, there's nothing like having a mom.
Amen.
Amen.
Leave it at that.
This is all.
Now, you got to be proud of him, Ms. Richardson.
Yes, no doubt. His wife too.
Do you feel up to walking down front with me? You okay with that, or you want us to,
If you help me.
if I help you, I can help. Let me get this mask back on.
Which way is it? This way? Okay.
I'm gonna go the way you tell
I'm
me
real
to.
trying to get to the stem.
Okay.
Okay, maybe you do this.
You noticed I didn't talk about our trails.
No, don't. We say that for the next one. All right, safety measures.
Do we want to invite the family up for photos?
Y'all seem to have a presentation yourself. I'm going, y'all get up here. John, help me pick out these. They're doing pretty good on their own. Hold on, we're not quite through yet. You gonna hold those for her on behalf of the Board of Commissioners and the staff, we also want to thank you back. Come on over here. Got some money in there, didn't you? First of all, you carry this home and you'll read all these cards. Anything else you'd like to say, man? Any of our staff, who should say anything else to Paul, Mr. Lamb?
Yeah, I will take this opportunity to thank you for your years of service, but particularly the last 7 years. I have realized on this board that you're the consensus maker.
I would like to say something if I could. Ms. Richardson, I can't believe this day is coming. I want to thank you for it being a privilege to work with you. When I think about sitting up there beside you since this building was built, and you'd kick me occasionally, and you always had a sense of humor. You made these meetings more enjoyable to be with. And two things I've really learned from you in these 25 years. One is patience, because I don't always have enough. And finally is wisdom, and you've got a whole lot of it, and Nash County has been really lucky to have your wisdom with us for the last 25 years, and thank you.
I wanted to say something, Mr. Granny, we love you, and those of us who've been around the church a long time, sometimes we think that the work we do in the church is what pleases God, and it does. But more important than what we do in the church is what we do in our communities, what we do in the lives of other people. And I am just so thankful for you being salt and light, and as the words of so many people who've been around you have seen the love of Jesus come out of you in developing and helping this community be a better place. We love you. We thank God for everything that He put in you, that you might be a blessing to us. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I made a speech, but I didn't get a hug.
And on behalf of your children, we know that it's been a long journey, and we know sometimes it was kind of iffy, but you're hanging in there and that will be so proud. So on behalf of myself and the children, we present you with your 25 red roses for every year of service to this county.
And you know, I will keep one, but others will be those who can share them. Senior sticky shut in, no, but I can.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Good to see you.
Thank y'all very much. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Stacy, did we ever hear back from any Coleman people?
I didn't hear a word.
I couldn't get them on the phone the weekend. I will start Back on our agenda, we are now on item number 7. And item number 7 is an item that we were asked, a proclamation that this board was asked to pass on behalf of another very long-serving member of our area from Wilson County as it relates to the Carolina Family Health Centers. I don't think we have anyone here this morning with that group. Seeing no one, I'm going to read the proclamation, if that's okay with the board, and then I'd entertain a motion to have it adopted. And I think we were actually doing this in all 3 counties, Nash, Edgecombe, and Wilson County, that the Carolina Family Health Centers serve in. And it's about A.P. Coleman, who several members of our board know very well, I'm sure. I learned to know Mr. Coleman through a opportunity to build quite a bit for this Carolina Family Health Centers. Actually, my son did. He built both facilities on 97 and 58, out there on 58, and he built the one in Principal and is now currently doing a project for him in Wilson. So it's something that our company has also served. I actually learned Mr. Coleman through that process more when he was chairman of the board. But the resolution or proclamation it's called says, whereas A.P. Coleman has served as a member of Carolina Family Health Centers since 1993 and has helped shape the mission and purpose of the organization for more than 25 years. Whereas A.P. Coleman joined the planning committee in 1993 for the original Wilson Community Health Center and is founding and long-standing board member for what is now known as the Carolina Family Health Centers Incorporated. And whereas A.P. Coleman aided in the growth of Carolina Family Health Center to include medical facilities in Edgecombe, Nash, and Wilson counties, Freedom Hill Community Health Center, Harvest Family Health Center, and Wilson Community Health Center, and a dental facility, Carolina Family Dental Center. More than 200 employees and more than 18,800 patients in 2009 alone. That's 18,800 patients. Whereas A.P. Coleman has been a leader to the organization and has advocated for patients and a friend to all, and whereas A.P. Coleman has announced his retirement from the Carolina Family Health Center Board effective October 27, 2020, and whereas his tenure with Carolina Family Health Centers Incorporated has brought and will continue to bring accessible, affordable health care with excellence where patients come first. Now, therefore, it be resolved that the Nash County Board of Commissioners does hereby recognize and honor A.P. Coleman for his service to Nash County citizens this 2nd day of November 2020. I'd entertain a motion for us to adopt this proclamation at this time.
So move.
Moved by Commissioner Bellfield. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Wells. Any questions on the motion? All in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir, Mr. Bellfield.
I've known AP from, we were schoolmates at A&T State University, and we worked together in the Cooperative Extension Service for 30-some years, and served on the Upper Coast Plain Council of Government with him for, maybe 20, he was on there long before and I was up there 20 years with him. He resigned from that last year, because he resigned from his position as city council member. And I haven't seen him since. I've asked some people about how is he doing. People that I've talked to, you call his phone number, I don't know how many times, never get an answer. So he must be, I'm thinking that he must be up in D.C. He has a daughter up there, and he has a son in Arlington, Virginia. And he has one that's here, but I think she was postmaster here in Nashville.
Yes, she was one time.
And, but I haven't been able to get in touch with the family. I've had one person, I know he told me that he had one health problem that, but I haven't been able to get in touch with him. And that's something I've been trying to do. Because we were good friends for, I know, way over 30 years, real close. And we did a lot of traveling together. So I just hope that he's okay. He has a grandson in Vermont. He like to go up there sometime. So that's where he may be, up there in Vermont.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Belfield. Well, that stands adopted. I'll proudly sign that at the end of the meeting. We'll move to item number 8, which is a public hearing for a text amendment to reduce event and conference venue separation distance. This time I'll call on Adam Tyson, our planning director.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir.
This text amendment, as you stated, refers to a previous text amendment made by the board back on May the 4th. It was made at the request of Mr. Turner Votipka. It defined event and conference venue as a land use because we did not have anything in our ordinance comparable to that at the time, and permitted its development in 3 zoning districts: A1 agricultural, RC rural commercial, and GC general commercial, with the issuance of a conditional use permit by this board being required on a case-by-case basis, and it would be subject to a list of required development standards. One of those development standards, which is highlighted on the screen before you, requires that the structure actually used to host the events or any outdoor areas that would host events must be located no closer than 300 feet to the property line of an immediately adjacent agriculturally zoned, residentially zoned, and/or residentially used property, unless the property already includes a legally established commercial or industrial land use. Mr. Votipka proposed this amendment because he desires to develop an event and conference venue on an approximately 14-acre property in his ownership that's located on the east side of South Halifax Road. It's also immediately adjacent to Allen's Nursery. At the public hearing for the text amendment, Mr. Votipka agreed to this 300-foot separation distance that's on the screen before you, suggested by the Board of Commissioners, because he believed that his proposed site design could accommodate it. However, a subsequent land survey of the property has revealed that it's not quite as wide as it previously appeared. And so if you'll refer to the graphic on the screen in front of you, the assumed property line is dashed here in the northern part of the map, but the actual property line that was defined by the land surveyor is further south than previously anticipated. And so that 300-foot separation distance reduces the buildable pocket for an event and conference venue to this red dashed rectangle right here. And of course, the separation distance from the south, where Allen's Nursery is located, is 50 feet because that is recognized as a commercial land use. But it reduces the area that could be developed for that into that red rectangle. And so as a result, Mr. Votipka has now submitted this text amendment, which is before you this morning, to reduce that separation distance from 300 feet to 200 feet. And that would permit a larger buildable area. If you look at the additional green dashed area, the buildable pocket would be expanded from the red rectangle to include not only the red rectangle, but the additional green rectangle dashed out here. And it would still maintain a 200-foot distance from that newly defined northern property line. I do want to note that the only thing before the board this morning is this separation distance. Mr. Votipka has submitted a conditional use rezoning application that will go before the planning board this month and before this board in December for the actual development of this specific facility. But what we're looking at today is an example of how this regulation would be applied. But it is a regulation that would be applied countywide if any other sites wanted to be developed as an event and conference venue. And so we'll have an opportunity to look at this site plan next month in more detail and hold a public hearing and notify the surrounding property owners. But today, the only issue is the separation distance and whether it should be reduced from 300 feet to 200 feet. The ordinance change is very simple. It's in front of you there. It removes the reference to 200 feet and adopts the other way around, removes the reference to 300 feet and adopts the 200-foot number. This text amendment would still far exceed the 50-foot separation that our ordinance currently requires for a country club, which may be used to host similar events to an event and conference venue and was used early on as a sort of a model for these regulations. And it is also far in excess of the 50-foot separation distance that was initially recommended by the planning board back in March of this year during their earlier consideration of the original text amendment. The Technical Review Committee reviewed this request back on October the 1st and recommended approval. And then the Planning Board in turn reviewed it on October 19. Planning Board voted unanimously to recommend approval of Consistency Statement A, finding the request to be reasonable, in the public interest, and not inconsistent with the Land Development Plan. And then also recommending specifically approval of the request to reduce that separation distance from 300 feet to 200 feet. This will be a two-motion process. We'll need the board to adopt a consistency statement, either in preparation for approval or denial, and then a second motion to actually approve or deny the text amendment. Mr. Votipka, the property owner and developer, is present with us this morning, and you can hear from him during the public hearing, and I'll be glad to take any questions that the board has before we proceed to the public hearing.
Any questions from the board of
Yes.
Mr. Tyson, Mr. Belfield?
Moving from 300 feet to 200 feet, which makes it closer to other adjacent property. Now, you're saying this is for activities?
The separation distance would be
And
for,
we're talking about what, weddings? What else?
the definition that was adopted by the commissioners and is in your report. It's an establishment available to the general public for hosting weddings, receptions, conferences, parties, business meetings, social gatherings, and similar indoor or outdoor events. So in the example of this particular facility, there's going to be a building, but there's also going to be an outdoor patio adjacent to the building, shown in red there, that will be used to host events. And so that entire area would need to be inside the buildable pocket created by the separation distance. And as you can see, as the way it's laid out, it does not fit inside the red 300-foot separation distance, but it could be easily accommodated inside the 300-foot extended or reduced separation distance. I keep saying it backwards, the 200-foot reduced separation distance.
When I read this, I wondered, I know some that we have not approved in the past. And I look at this, it make me think about the concerns of some communities in the past with activity centers and here in the county. The parking space on here, and help me to understand this, because I think, I don't know, I'm not clear on the parking space. You got to have adequate parking space. Would that fall within that 200 feet?
The ordinance amendment that was adopted back in May specifies that the parking spaces can be within that 200 feet. And I think, well, the 300 now, the 200 later, if it's adopted. But I think that the logic behind that is that it's a noise consideration. And the noise is anticipated to come from where the event's being held, not necessarily where the parking is taking place. And if I could speak to your first point, when you mention other facilities that have requested permission in the past and not been approved, The primary difference here is that the commissioners are going to have an opportunity to determine if this should be a commercially zoned piece of property, whereas in previous cases, they have tried to establish one in a residential zoning area. And so that would be one of the big differences between this set of regulations and the previous, is that before this can be developed, the commissioners are going to have to take a look at it next month and determine if this property is a good fit for a commercial zone, and then we would be developing this commercial use in a commercial zone, whereas previous applicants have tried to work backwards to establish them in already existing residential zones. And so it's a little bit different there.
Well, one other concern I have, I was just thinking about, that we had already a complaint this morning, continued about noise, that this possibly could also turn into, depending on what activities they have out there. And that's my concern. And I do think we need to address what's going to be happening at that activity center. Noise really travel at night. Noise really travel in the day when it's cloudy and damp. And so I think there's a lot of factors that we need to consider.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Belfield. Other questions from commissioners, comments? Thank you, Mr. Tyson. At this time, I'd entertain a motion to go into public hearing on this matter.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Richardson. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Combs. Any questions on that motion? All in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign? Ladies and gentlemen, we are now in a public hearing to hear from anyone that may be here for or against this item, which is a text amendment. As Mr. Tyson stated, we will be addressing the actual location and the planned use for that at a sequence meeting, maybe in December, if it gets through the planning board. But today, we're only addressing the text amendment, which changes the previous thing that we did, which had 300-foot setback from residential, and reduces it to 200 foot. So is there anyone here that wishes to speak for or against this text amendment at this time? Turner, come forward, sir. You would state your name and address for the record, Turner. I appreciate it.
Be a little wet. Sorry. I'm Turner Vertipka. I live at 2717 Amherst Road, Rocky Mount, NC 27804. I'm the one who's proposing this, and part of kind of answer some of your questions as far as like why we want to expand it out some. We still think 200 feet's plenty soundproof buffer, and there still has to be a large buffer of what's the word? Like trees, I guess, or okay. The other portion is we think that if we're allotted a little bit more space, it actually allows us to build a slightly larger building, which will in turn allow us to be able to maintain things indoors, as opposed to if we have a smaller space, we'll have to facilitate more things outdoors, and that would cause more of the sound issue, which you might have a problem with. And so that's kind of our hope with it somewhat. But as far as my wife and I go, who are proposing this, when we bring our actual plan forward, if you guys do allow this today, we really hope to be able to bring a lot of social gatherings and things like that here at Rocky Mount, or Nash County as a whole, and enhance the life of Nash County and be able to actually bring some more businesses and bring some different opportunities here, and not so much just kind of bring something new in, and nothing to change the overall culture of Nash County, but something just kind of add to what we have currently, because we really love it here. We love Nash County, and our goal is to add something here that we can leave for our kids also, but to be able to enhance the lives of everybody who lives around here. So if you guys have any questions, I'd be glad to answer them.
Any questions of Turner at this time from board members? Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, y'all. Appreciate it.
Anyone else wish to speak on this matter? Seeing no one, I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion by Commissioner Leggett, second by Commissioner Wells. Any questions on the motion? All in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign? Public hearing is now closed, and I would asked Commissioner Outlaw, I know you worked on this quite a bit with the applicant and with the planning department because it is in your district. Did you have anything you wanted to add at this time, sir?
Well, I would say that when this first came to my attention, I met with Turner, and we had a good discussion. I also talked with Adam about it more than once. The original 300 feet was my recommendation based on the fact that we felt like Turner had the space to do what he wanted to do. Since he's determined that he does not, I can tell you that Turner Vatipka is a good man. He will put a venue on this site that will be well-run, and I do not see it as an issue for the community. Otherwise, I would not be a supporter of this today. With that said, Mr. Chairman, I move that the Nash County Board of Commissioners adopt consistency statement A for the text amendment approval.
Okay. Prior to taking that motion, did any other commissioner have any questions after hearing the public hearing? Seeing none, I'll take Mr. Outlaw's motion to adopt consistency statement A and those items listed under it. Commissioner Combs has seconded that motion. Is there any question on the motion? Mr. Belfield? Yes, sir.
This is coming back before us in our next meeting. Why can't we do it all during that time?
Well, my thought would be, and Mr. Tyson can correct me, but prior to them being able to submit a plan that has 200-foot setback, and the planning department be willing to look at it, they need to have the ordinance in place to look at it from a 200-foot setback. And so that's, we really couldn't handle all of that at one meeting. So we're trying to do it a step at a time. Any other questions, Mr. Belfield, or any other commissioner? All right, Ms.
I'd just
Richardson.
like to say, I concur with Mr. Belfield, and I'm hoping the occupant and Mr. Tyson can work on it, and that noise is a concern for all of us. So if that can be controlled and workable, that's our main concern.
Right. And that would be an item that we certainly could address when we approve the site plan, when it comes back. We can certainly talk about noise coming from the facility more at that time.
I do think, just another comment, this site is, the structure is sitting how far off the road? Like, it's a good ways off the road?
It is.
If you're familiar with this area, there's a nursery to the right, and there's a wooded section to the left. That 200-foot section between the structure and the property line would be used for parking, but there would be no activities on that 200-foot setback other than for parking. And again, it is way off the road. I'm thinking it is probably, how far would it be exactly?
Appears to be about
1,000 feet or more?
No, I see a 50-foot setback line there, so it's probably at least 1,000 feet.
Yeah. And also I've had, I believe, if I'm remembering correctly, that you have to have a minimum of 10-acre site to have a center like this.
Correct.
And Mr. Belfield spoke to some previous situations, but I don't think they would qualify under that particular requirement of 10 acres. Again, I think Mr. Vatipka is going to present us with a structure that would require him to use well water. So he's going to probably have some things, maybe a tank or something to accommodate a sprinkler system if he feels like that's needed. But everything I've asked him to do to get this approved, he has been very willing to do it, been very cooperative, and I appreciate him working with me as he has done.
Mr. Belfield?
We have used well water and the water line running down Halifax Road.
Under the
In
current
that area.
situation,
All the way in that area.
under the current situation, that water line is owned by the city of Rocky Mount, and we have found it sometimes difficult to tie on to that line without a request for annexation. And this area would not support annexation, I don't think at all. Knowing the area simply because I was raised right across the street from this
They
area
ought to
almost.
want to sell some water.
I understand that, sir. That's another day.
I wish they would sell some water, to be honest with you.
I do want to caution the board because we referred to it several times, and I don't want it to come back up later, but what we're doing here today with this text amendment, it is not designated for this site. It is a text amendment that would affect any site in the county.
That's right.
And anything that's submitted forward, but 200 foot is a long way, and currently the setback is, as Mr. Tyson said, what we currently have is 50 foot, so it's a long way, a bit larger addition, 4 times what we currently have. But with that said, we do have a motion on the floor and a second. Any other discussion? If not, all in favor of that motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by like sign?
Reluctantly, I said aye.
Thank you, Mr. Belfield.
Thank you, Mr. Belfield. That was
I'm basing that on,
well,
I have a lot of respect for Commissioner Outlaw. He said the project
Right.
is okay, so.
Well, I think your concern would be more addressed at the next step of this process, Mr. Belfield. Not that I want to set you up to, be difficult at the next step, but we just need to listen to it when we get it back to us again, and all those things we can address. But the motion did carry, and the text amendment has been adopted. Thank you, Mr. Tyson.
I think
Now,
we need the second motion.
yeah, I'm fixing to go there. Okay. We have the consistency statement that we have approved, and now we need a motion to deny or approve the text amendment.
Move for approval.
Have a motion to approve, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Richardson. Any questions on that motion? All in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign? And the consistency, the text amendment is now adopted, sir.
Thank you.
Thank y'all. You got a different style there,
Yeah.
Mr. Lamb, this morning.
Yeah, I got the heavy hitter stuff here.
Okay, wonderful.
Hospital stuff.
Hospital stuff, great. It is another very pleasurable item on item number 9 on the agenda. We occasionally get to do these life-saving awards, and in fact, fairly recently, I went to see a gentleman about doing some body work for me on a Bronco that me and my grandson are restoring. And when I introduced myself, he said, "I know who you are. You were in charge of the meeting when I got a life-saving award." And he told me the year, he told me the accident in Nash County. I didn't remember it at the time, but it's always a pleasure to do these. And that was a citizen, but today we have a presentation for one of our own officers. And at this time, Brandon and Sheriff, are you going to participate, I hope, too? So y'all have the floor now, sir, ever how you wish to do it.
Morning, Mr.
Good morning,
Chairman,
sir.
Commissioners.
He's still standing at the back.
So on September 30th, 2020, at approximately 12:48 a.m., Nash County Communications received a call from an individual stating he was involved in a vehicle accident somewhere on Sykes Road, possibly near Castalia Road. The caller also indicated that there were 2 other vehicle occupants possibly still in the vehicle. Along with Lieutenant Taylor Neal, Deputy Nicholas Place, Deputy Christopher Patterson, and Sergeant Stanley Ricks, Nash County Communications also dispatched personnel from Fire Station 3, Fire Station 17, Nash County EMS 2, and Medic 3. Sergeant Ricks was the first Sheriff's Office member to reach the scene and discovered the vehicle overturned in the creek with most of the vehicles submerged under murky water. Without hesitation, Sergeant Ricks removed his duty equipment and jumped into the murky water along with Castalia volunteer fireman Nathaniel Evans. Sergeant Ricks was able to hear a voice coming from within the vehicle and responded by telling the vehicle occupant he and fireman Nathaniel Evans were there to help him. The vehicle occupant told Sergeant Ricks that another vehicle occupant was no longer moving. Sergeant Ricks and fireman Nathaniel Evans attempted to gain access to the submerged vehicle via the doors, windows, and windshield. Sergeant Ricks was able to locate a broken out passenger window and located what appeared to be an air pocket inside of the vehicle. Sergeant Ricks took a deep breath and entered the vehicle via the broken out rear passenger window. Once inside the vehicle's rear seating area, Sergeant Ricks located the first occupant, who was unresponsive. Sergeant Ricks was not able to physically see the second occupant located in the front driver's seating area since there was water well above the back of the seat, but was able to speak and provide reassurance to the second occupant. Sergeant Ricks was able to locate and unlock the front driver's door lock. Sergeant Ricks told the front occupant he was exiting the vehicle so they could find better access and rescue him through the now unlocked front door. A few moments later, Sergeant Ricks and Fireman Nathaniel Evans were able to extract the front seat occupant and escorted him to the creek bank for treatment by awaiting medical personnel. Sergeant Stan Ricks' determined efforts, outstanding initiative, and fortitude during this rescue were instrumental in the saving of a human life. Sergeant Stan Ricks' unselfish actions and valiant service, despite imminent personnel danger, reflect great credit upon himself and in keeping with the highest traditions of humanitarian service. Sergeant Stan Ricks and wife, can you please come forward? The following award presented by Sheriff Pete Stone is for the Meritorious Life-Saving Award for Sergeant Stan Ricks for actions occurred on September 30th, 2020.
Thank you for your service. Thank you for what you did here, saving lives. Often it goes unnoticed, but I appreciate it. The people of Nash County do. God bless you. Godspeed. Thank you. Thank you.
Sheriff, if we could turn around and get a good picture, that would be great. Jonathan, there you go.
Mr. Chairman, may I make a comment?
Yes, sir.
While the sheriff's here?
Yes, sir.
It was.
Sheriff, hold on just a second.
I mentioned at a COVID meeting about a week or two ago, and I know it was in one of the newspapers, I believe the Nashville paper, but I'd like to recognize our sheriff for his receiving the Dogwood Award a couple weeks ago for his efforts to combat the opioid crisis in Nash County, and it's very personal to me, and I just want to publicly congratulate him on getting that award from the Attorney General's office.
Thank you, Mr. Lamb. Sheriff? That was recognized, Anita. I think I pointed that out to you. I hope y'all went back and looked at it. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Appreciate all y'all do.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Lamb. We're now on, how are we doing for our break? Has anybody
Vince is going.
tried to get me?
Vince is going.
I've got 5 items in a row. That's Mr. Boone's. Why don't we take about a 5-10 minute break, Mr. Boone? That's okay with you? You might could spend a little bit more time in your pre-construction conference that's going on at the same time if you like. But 10 minutes, we'll be back, and you have 5 items on the agenda coming up. And the next 5 items, starting with number 10, are Mr. Boone's. Mr. Boone, we'll turn it over to you this time, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, fellow commissioners. You may recall last month presented a draft policy for your comment. It was a oversized agreement policy for water and or sewer mains. I think that was more or less favorably received. One of the comments that you did have those wanted me to go back and amend the policy and look at a minimum size requirement for water mains, and I have done that. You will see that added in the policy to specify that at a minimum, the developer would required to fund the cost of a 4-inch water main, but since it is a water and sewer main policy, although I think sewer main oversized agreements will be much less likely, I did also amend the policy to address an 8-inch sewer main. So the policy is more or less as presented last month with just that amendment to the policy. And if you have that in front of you, you will see that as item C on page 2. Again, it is assumed that the water and/or sewer main required to serve the project, again, we're talking about developer's project, will be no smaller than a 4-inch water main or 8-inch sewer main. As such, reimbursement amount shall be based on the cost to upsize the main from a 4-inch water main or a 8-inch sewer main to the size requested by the county based on the long-range plans for the county's water and/or sewer system. So again, that was the only change to the policy.
Any questions, Mr. Boone, on item 10? Belfield?
The county requirements, is it 2 inches, 4 inches, or 8 inches, the county line?
Again, it will be based on the system design for the water system or the sewer system. So it's going to vary based on the location of the main. If it's a larger trunk main, it's going to be a larger water line. So, for instance, if you look at our Northern Ash Water System project, Red Oak Road or NC 43, you'll see a 12-inch water main. And off of that, you see smaller mains. So it really depends on the location, but it will be based on our master plan. And if we happen to receive a request for a project that is outside the current limits of the system that we have designed, then we would work with our engineers, and right now we're currently working with the Wooten Company to determine what the appropriate size would be. But in the cases that I'm going to present, should the policy be approved, it's an extension of an existing main that the county has, and we're basically extending it at the same size as the original design, anticipating further growth or additional growth of the system to serve customers outside the current limits of the district.
Well, wouldn't you want to have the size where others can tap on maybe into the future? You won't have to worry about changing.
That is the impetus for the oversized agreement. We want to size the main for future extension, not just for the needs of the current development. So again, the example I will share with you, should this policy be approved, will be a project where the developer only needs a 4-inch main to serve this project. The county would prefer an 8-inch main so that it has capacity not only to serve the proposed development, but future development, either in that same immediate area or further north of, again, the example or the next agreement I'll share with you be the one with Red Oak Farms. So it's about upsizing the main to meet the county's needs, not just the main needs of the developer. So it's really kind of a partnership between the developer and the county, and that's what the oversized agreement is meant to provide for.
But we're putting in here authorizing to reimburse the developer.
What we're
Correct.
doing.
The developer had very little incentive to construct an 8-inch main when he only needs a 4-inch main. So entice the developer as part of his development, he's already going to incur the engineering costs to design the extension to install a 4-inch main, and the county's coming in and saying, well, if you're going to design an extension of a water main, and it's on a case-by-case basis, it's not a foregone conclusion that for every project the county would entertain such an agreement. But when it is advantageous for the county, if the developer's going to make the expense and he's going to dig a trench and put a water main in it, it's only the incremental cost of a 4-inch piece of pipe to an 8-inch piece of pipe and the fittings that go along with that. We would pay that incremental increase, and he would still incur the base expenses for a 4-inch water main as opposed to an 8-inch main. So we're absorbing the incremental cost.
So you're saying the county running an 8-inch main, but their engineers are saying that they can just need maybe a 4-inch?
Correct. If a developer is developing a subdivision with 25 houses in it, he does not need an 8-inch main. He needs a 4-inch main.
That's what bothers me about reimbursing the developer.
We're reimbursing the developer because he will incur additional expense to install a main bigger than what he needs. He doesn't need an 8-inch main. We want an 8-inch main. He needs a 4-inch main.
And we want it because we looking at
The future.
future of others tapping on. All right, that's where I've been trying to go, to find out. Is that the reason for this? Okay.
Right, that's the intent.
All right.
Yes, sir. Other questions?
Just a comment. Mr. Bellfield, we're not subsidizing in any way the private developer. We're simply getting him to, when he installs those lines, to install larger lines for future needs for the county.
Okay. Yeah, well, that makes sense. That's what I was wondering about. Are we going to require a line where others later on in the future can tap on too?
Correct. It's not compulsory. The developer would have to agree to enter into the agreement. The county would have to agree, and each agreement will come before the commissioners, and you will have to approve it. This is not a staff-level decision. Staff will make a recommendation, and ultimately, you as a commissioner will have to consider that recommendation and decide whether it's advantageous for the county to move forward or not.
Okay, I got you.
It's very common in rural water systems to have these kind of agreements.
And municipal. And municipal.
And municipal, yeah.
Any other questions? If not, I'd entertain a motion for approval for item number 10.
So moved.
Have a motion by Commissioner Outlaw, second by Commissioner Leggett. Any questions on the motion? All in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign? Motion carries. We'll move to item number 11. Mr. Boone?
Thanks, sir. So again, this is the agreement which I was referring to. This is a draft agreement with Red Oak Farms LLC for a 32-acre tract of land off of Red Oak Road. It's about 2,000 feet north and east of the existing main that was installed on Red Oak Road north of the elementary school. And this developer, again, is looking to develop a subdivision, connect to county water. But in order to do so, the water main would have to be extended 2,000 feet along Red Oak Road to reach his development. And the existing main that the county constructed on Red Oak Road, which terminates at approximately St. John's Baptist Church, I believe it is an 8-inch main. So again, in the absence of the policy which the commissioners just approved to make this vehicle available to us, the developer would install a 4-inch main that would serve that 32-acre tract and would be of very little value to the county moving forward in terms of serving property that may develop either around his development, which he owns another 200 acres, or further north beyond his development, north to Wallet Mill Road and beyond towards Fishing Creek and the county line. What we have before us is an agreement which I have drafted. The developer's already approved. And effectively, what you see is an agreement that would reimburse the developer $27,300. And again, effectively, that is the cost differential between the developer installing a 4-inch main and installing an 8-inch main. So again, we're only paying for that incremental size increase. Again, he does not need an 8-inch main for his development. He needs a 4-inch. But it certainly would be advantageous for the county to take advantage of this opportunity to further expand the water system. And honestly, in effect, we're getting an 8-inch main that, if constructing on our own, would cost much more than $27,300. So it's really a win for the county. And again, the developer has to agree to do it. And I guess you could potentially argue it's not really much of an incentive for the developer. He's really not getting anything out of it. Because other than the fact there's an 8-inch main now, he has 200 acres left, and should he decide to develop that, then we will have a larger main there to serve it. So on the front end, there's very little incentive, but certainly there's some future gain to the developer if they're so inclined and they have additional acreage available. So again, what you'll see is the agreement, the reimbursement of $27,300, although again, it's subject to approval by the commissioners. We can change that if you're so inclined. I have assumed reimbursement over 2 years, starting in fiscal year 2022. But again, we're here in 1st of November. By the time the developer develops his plans, have those approved, constructs a subdivision, we're probably into the later part of next year anyway. But again, this would provide for a reimbursement over 2 years. Again, remind you, we would require the developer to solicit 3 bids. We can select the bid that's most advantageous to the county. This is a ceiling of $27,300. It could come in less. So this is kind of our worst-case scenario. It may cost us less than $27,300, but that number is based on the preliminary estimate provided by the developer's engineer, again, for the cost differential to upsize a 4-inch water main to an 8-inch water main. Let's see, anything else I need to cover in the agreement? I can't think of anything at this time, but I'll be glad to answer any questions you may have.
Questions to Mr. Boone on this? Mr. Boone, if indeed it came in considerably more than the $27,000 difference, I'm assuming you'd come back to this board for approval to cover the net difference, whatever that was.
We're not compelled to.
I understand.
We have identified a cost not to exceed.
Right.
But if county was willing to entertain a higher number, I'm sure the developer would love for us to do so.
I think we need to have that thought in mind that it could possibly happen at some point in the future.
Right.
No other questions. I entertain a motion to approve item number 11. It would,
Second.
motion by Commissioner Richardson, second by Commissioner Leggett, or Ms. Wells, excuse me.
It don't make any difference.
Well, you sounded awful strong down there. I'm glad to hear that, ma'am. By Commissioner Wells, any questions on that motion? All in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign? Motion carries. 12 is another similar one, Mr. Boone.
All right, yeah, item number 12. I have referred to this one a little bit differently. I refer to it as a developer agreement. Although there are some similarities between this project and the project that we just discussed, Red Oak Farms, there are also some fairly distinct differences. This particular project involves Phase 3 of a subdivision on Red Oak Road, the landing at Cooper Fields. The developer is Four Seasons. And early on in our work on the Northern Ash Water System, the developer approached the county about the possibility of extending county water into that subdivision to serve the third phase of his project. And at the time, the thought was that we would be able to issue a change order to our current contractor, ELJ, to extend the water into that subdivision. And as it turns out, that's not going to be a viable alternative in this particular situation. But conceptually, what we had discussed with the developer is that the extension of that main, which is about, as you can see there, 3,000 feet, that we would partner with the developer to install that infrastructure at the unit prices that the county received when they bid the Northern Ash Water System. And at that time, that was about $58,000 based on the preliminary design. So the agreement you have in front of you, while similar, is a little bit different in that in this scenario, the county would commission the work and the developer would post a bond for the construction based on the unit prices that were in the contract with ELJ. In addition to that, cost would pay for the water tap fees, the meter fees, and the capacity fees. Again, what you have in front of you, I do need to make one change to the description. I believe it's also in the memo. The memo references a deposit or a cost to the developer not to exceed $77,200. While there are 32 lots in Phase 3 of the subdivision, one of those is a lot owned by the HOA, will not be built upon, so it will only be 31 lots, so I need to reduce that number from $77,200 to $76,600. But again, what the actions that we have taken to date is the Wooten Company has completed the design. We actually issued the project out to bid. We opened bids back on the 28th, and it's an informal bid. But we received bids from Ed Braswell and Sons, and the intent would be, should this agreement be approved, is to move forward with construction and extension of that water main along Blue Heron Drive, which will be through Phase 1 of that subdivision, and to now 31 lots in Phase 3 of this subdivision on the end of Blue Heron Drive. The road has already been constructed. 7 houses have already been built. There are other lots that are being actively developed at this time. But the carrot for the county, if you will, is we would gain 31 water customers at a minimum. And then we've also extended an offer to the existing homeowners in Phase 1, the opportunity to purchase a tap at the discounted rates that we used on the Northern Ash Water System project. I believe there were 20 or 21 of those property owners. So potentially we could serve 51 residential lots through the extension of this water main. So that would be the advantage to the county in terms of why we would entertain such an agreement. In addition to the tax base that we'll gain through the development of these lots, and again, through the use of county water, which we need customers using water, it helps with turnover in the system, with chlorination. There's a lot of operational advantages to having those additional customers sign on to the system or connect to the system. So for that reason, that's why we're recommending the county entertain this particular agreement. So I know I covered a lot of ground in a short period of time, but I'd be glad to answer any questions that you may have.
Questions on this one, which is a hybrid from the one before? Seeing none, to entertain a motion for approval.
So move.
Moved by Commissioner Bellfield. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Wells. Any questions on the motion? All in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign. Item 12 was approved as well. Item 13.
All right, item 13, that is the agreement with Aqua North Carolina regarding the acquisition of the existing wells and distribution systems in 2 subdivisions here in the county, Shepherd's Way and the Oaks at Hunter Hill. You may recall we had discussed this previously. The manager had been authorized to negotiate with Aqua North Carolina on the acquisition of those 2 systems. And again, the motivation for this acquisition is to purchase the well primarily at Shepherd's Way, which will serve as one of the 2 wells that will provide water to serve customers in the Northern Ash Water Sewer District. So this agreement merely formalizes that arrangement. There's a lot of legal language in this document, which if you have a lot of questions about that, I'm going to have to defer to the county attorney. But the long and short of it is it stipulates the method in which we'll move forward, the time frame for doing so, the conveyance of the real property and improvements in those 2 subdivisions related to these 2 systems. And as outlined in the memo, we anticipate the process of going through the Utility Commission, because this is a private-owned utility, will take about 5 months. So we're looking at a closing in late March to acquire the property. Once acquired, if approved by the commissioners, based on the agreement you have in front of you, there will be some improvements required to the wellhead, treatment systems at the well at Shepherd's Way. And that work will start in the spring, hopefully completed by the fall. But until that time, recall, we have the interconnection with the City of Rocky Mount, and that will provide the water needed to provide or supply water to the customers that we currently have and will have in the not-too-distant future.
Any questions on this particular item? We had discussed it previously.
Yeah,
Yes, sir, Mr. Bellfield.
Is that a public utility company? Aqua.
It is a public utility company that is privately owned and therefore governed by the North Carolina Utility Commission.
Oh, okay.
Other questions?
And they own water lines in Nash County?
They own the water lines and the wells at the subdivision Shepherd's Way, which is about 3/4 of a mile from the tank there at Reddick Middle School, and then the Oaks at Hunter Hill. You may recall from our discussions about this before, the system at the Oaks at Hunter Hill is not as advantageous for us. That well only yields about 35 gallons per minute, but Aqua's position was they own and maintain 2 systems in Nash County, and if they're going to sell one, they prefer to sell both. So we will operate the one at Hunter Hill independently of the Northern Ash Water System District. But yes, they own and operate both of those systems.
So it's going to be, if the county purchases it, then would it connect with the county water system?
Shepherd's Way will, the Oaks at Hunter Hill will be operated independently until such time as the district is expanded to include that subdivision. And at such time that is done, we would likely decommission the well at the Oaks at Hunter Hill and would just tie them into the Northern Ash Water Sewer District. But for the time being, that will be a standalone system just for that subdivision. We'll basically operate it the same way that Aqua North Carolina has operated, again, until such time as we can incorporate it to the larger system.
Other questions?
Mr. Chairman, I would ask that any approval be subject to final review of the engineer, manager, and myself, because I just got these exhibits to this agreement at the end of last week, and I will have some comments. So there will be some small changes to the exhibits. But the agreement itself, it's already included my comments, and it's ready to go.
Okay. So the request is to approve it subject to final approval by three gentlemen mentioned.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
The most important of which being the county attorney.
Yeah, I think that's the one that.
Well, it was three important people, period. I'll let y'all decide who's most important. Any other questions? Entertain a motion for approval for item number 11.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Outlaw. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Leggett. Any questions on that motion? All in favor, let it be known by saying aye, and the motion is subject to final approval by the engineer, the manager, and the lawyer. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign? Motion carries.
Just to clarify, that was item 13, correct?
Item 13. And we have one item left for Mr. Boone, but prior to moving to that, Mr. Boone, I'd just like to let the board know that with our water system, I hope we'll, and the growth that we're experiencing in Nash County, I'm glad to get this oversized agreement in place, because I think we'll be seeing this quite frequently moving forward. We've got to, a county water system is different than a municipal system. County water system is built to serve the public with water, not necessarily a firefighting system, even though whenever we can, we try to get as many hydrants as we can, where primarily, or not primarily, but equally important in a municipal system is to have a firefighting system in place, because municipal fire departments generally do not have tankers like volunteers do. But I think with the growth that we're seeing, we'll continue to see these. And Mr. Boone, I appreciate your effort on getting these policies in place for us in a timely manner, so we'll be ready for moving forward. With that said, Stacy, did you have something we need? Okay, thank you. We'll be moving to item number 13, which is a presentation of proposed building modification to address COVID-19 and security.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So we'll turn our attention away from the Northern Ash Water System for a minute and talk a little bit about the administrative building. I think we all can agree that we have a very open, very welcoming building, but with a building that is open and very welcoming, there can also be some challenges. And I think there's been some discussions, certainly at the staff level. I think maybe commissioners have been involved previously, talking about some of those issues, and with the onset of COVID-19 and the need to screen both employees and guests to the building, some of those issues have come back to light, and that's what we'd like to talk to you about this morning. All right. So again, the intent is to discuss with you some work that staff has completed with the assistance of Oakley Collier Architects, looking at some building modifications to the building to address COVID-19 related issues, and also at the same time look at some of the security needs that have been identified in the facility. As you will see, and you may already be aware, early on in the pandemic, the federal government passed roughly a $2 trillion federal bill, the Coronavirus Relief Act. And within that act, there were funds set aside for local governments and municipalities, tribes, to the tune of about $150 billion. And that was set aside in the Coronavirus Relief Fund. And through the provisions that were included in that fund, the jurisdictions can use some of those monies to address COVID-19 related issues to protect the health and safety of the public. So the funds that we were proposed to use for the COVID-19 related improvements, we proposed to use these funds. Of the $3.6 million that the county received, we've currently set aside about $150,000 for such improvements. But with that being said, we can reallocate some of those funds. It's been a somewhat fluid process since March. There's been a lot, as I know you're aware, that we've had to consider. And there are some additional funds available if we need them, but as it stands at present, we have $150,000 set aside for such projects. Now, ideally, the projects as outlined in the legislation would be implemented and in operation by the end of this calendar year, actually before the end of this calendar year, December 30th. But there was some language that was set aside in the legislation that allows for local governments to go beyond that deadline. There are some exceptions, just anticipating supply chain issues, other issues that may be encountered. So why it would be our intent to move forward before December 30th, if approved by the commissioners. We also recognize that if we encounter some challenges between now and then, the federal government has provided some flexibility in that regard. I mentioned the COVID-19 improvements, but again, because of previous conversations about security-related concerns in the building, and we have a pre-911 building, we felt like it would be best to look at the COVID-19 issues and security issues in concert with one another, so we would have an overall master plan. So you will see those recommendations outlined in this presentation. So again, as I mentioned, we engaged Oakley Collier Architects to conduct the assessment for the building, and again, the intent was to develop a cohesive master plan that would look at both of those issues simultaneously. And while the assessment was primarily focused on COVID-19 related screening mitigation measures to protect the health and safety of our employees and our guests to the building, again, we also looked at security-related issues. Oakley Collier Architects was on site September 28th, worked with staff, went through the entire building, and the recommendations that you'll see in this presentation are based on that assessment. We received the first draft of the report end of last month. I'd be glad to share with you a copy of that report, but again, it is in draft form, and a lot of the recommendations will be the subject of our conversation this morning. But we, again, looked at the entire building, all public entrances and each of the departments housed within the administrative building and also the DSS annex. All right, so you are likely aware, I'm sure you visited the building after we implemented our COVID-19 screening measures the first part of this year. Initially, we had posted staff at the public entrance from the parking lot at the rear of the building, and DSS had also manned the employee entrance on the east side of the building. But we relied on a manual process. We had a fold-out table, we had a couple of thermal scanners, and as you came into the building, if you came in between 7 and 8:30, someone maybe with goggles on would take a thermal scanner and would take your temperature, shooting you in the forehead, or aiming the thermal scanner at your forehead. And then you would either get a pass-fail, and I think during that period of time, we may have had one guest or one employee whose temperature was above normal, and we had to deal with that issue. But the important thing to know is we had to set up kind of an interim measure, and we were only able to staff the entrance between 7 and 8:30. Since that time, we purchased a couple of freestanding units. You probably saw one of the units this morning when you came in. But that allowed us to provide a presence throughout the day, but the weakness of that system is it's not actively managed. So if you stand there long, you see guests come in the building, you will more than likely notice that most customers will bypass that thermal scanner and not even acknowledge its presence. Employees do a pretty good job of stopping and having their temperature taken, but guests, not so much. And Oakley Collier, during their visit on the 28th, saw that very behavior. So that's really kind of the impetus for the recommendations that we're bringing forward to you this morning. So again, from a COVID-19 standpoint, we primarily focused on the public entrances. That would be the one at the rear of the building to the parking lot, the south side of the building at Washington Street. But again, we also expanded that to look at the individual apartments. But from a public entrance standpoint, again, when you came in this morning, hopefully you noticed the thermal scanner, hopefully you stopped and had your temperature taken, everybody passed. But again, most guests will just walk right past that. And then once you pass through that airlock, recall we have a double set of doors here, really not a lot of space here. When you enter, then we have this open area here for entering into DSS, or either you continue further down the hallway to the elevator or come up the stairs. But that is the area that we focused on for the COVID-19 related measures. During our talks with Oakley Collier on the 28th, there's a couple of issues we identified with that area to the rear of the building. First, as I mentioned earlier, it's a fairly confined space. The intent, I believe, those airlocks is more around energy efficiency. But in terms of using that to screen guests when they come into the building, it's somewhat limited. And it's not particularly, as we've seen, really advantageous with the current freestanding screening units that we have in place. Again, reference the early approach that we had taken with the manually taking temperatures, but it's difficult to sustain that over time. It also can create a bottleneck, particularly in the morning when we have a lot of foot traffic coming in, or during public meetings such as this. Other times when we have a lot of folks coming into the building, somewhat limiting. And obviously, we prefer in the COVID-19 environment to keep our guests ideally 6 feet or more apart. You probably also noticed when you came in, again, with the advent of those freestanding units, we posted some signs to try to make guests aware of the unit and encourage compliance and them taking their temperature. But again, that has not proved to be particularly effective. And then the other challenge that we have is that public elevator, as soon as you come in, I don't know if it's just visually busy or what the issue may be, but we'll see a lot of customers, again, just totally bypass, even though it's right there in the corner, they'll bypass that freestanding unit, they'll enter the elevator and come up into the building. So those are some of the challenges that we identified. So the proposal that Oakley Collier has provided us, again, this is the parking lot here, just off the screen. I did a kind of a screen capture. The other thing, which just make you aware of, we are proposing some bollards outside by the rear of the building to keep possibly vehicles from coming in and crashing into the building, which is a concern at times. But in terms of the interior improvements, what you'll see is Oakley Collier is recommending that we eliminate the second set of doors, that airlock, that we install a high throughput temperature sensor similar to what the school system is using for guests as they come in. Again, the school system is using those with students, or proposing to use those with students as they bring the schools back online. So that will allow us to move folks through that station quickly. And then ultimately, we would propose to implement some measures on all these accesses to these doors to control access into the facility. And specifically, you may have a question about the elevator here. The intent would be to primarily use that elevator for customers that are exiting the building. So moving forward, the proposal would be for guests to come in, pass through the temperature scanner. Obviously, you can see we have 2 chairs here. At some point, we would envision this station being manned with personnel, but they would go through the temperature check, and then if everything checks out, proceed through the building and use the elevator internal to the building to come up to the 2nd or to the 3rd floor. So we're not making a lot of changes to the footprint here. Again, the primary changes are removal of the airlock, construction of a freestanding desk here, potentially could be staffed to assist those guests as they come in the building, but also to provide additional security for guests as they come in. And longer term, we would see this station being used as a location where we would monitor all the security cameras that we currently have in the building. The cameras that we currently have are passive. They're available for reference after the fact, but those cameras are currently not being monitored in real time. So over time, we could use this location for that purpose, so that were an incident that we could automatically intervene, be more proactive versus reactive.
Jonathan, on that other page, I just want the board to notice there's 2 seats in the station there. Our recommendation is going to be to have 1 person there initially. Sometime in the future, you might need a second. That's why we made it big enough so you could have 2 seats. But it will require new staff and our initial recommendation will be one person once it's completed, at all times, yeah. That may be part-time people, that may be full-time person with part-time fill-in, but our initial idea is one person to man that.
All right. So again, as far as the primary elements associated with the recommendation, outside of removing the second set of doors, you will see, and this is just an example, certainly we're not this far along in the process yet, but you can see here a desk with glass along the perimeter that maintains line of sight, full 360 around the station. It's kind of what we would see here. The only difference is, looks like this glass is probably 4 feet above the counter height. Ultimately what we're proposing, or what Oakley Collier is proposing with our screening station, is something that would be ceiling height. But as I'll talk about here in a second, we anticipate this work being done in phases. So initially would just be the desk. And again, this just give you some idea of what that might look like. You see a lower section here. This allows to serve any guests that may have, in terms of meeting ADA compliance. But that's just kind of conceptually what that might look like, that freestanding desk. And then this is the high throughput temperature screener. Has a camera for video to record guests as they come in the building, if you're so inclined. We really haven't drilled down that far into the weeds, but the device has a temperature scanner here that will scan guests as they come into the building. And again, the intent is to develop the entrance such that if you want to come in the building, you have to go through the scanner. There will not be an option to automatically enter the elevator, bypass the scanner, pass through the doors, come up through the stairwell, through the elevator. You'll have to come through the temperature scanner. So that's what Oakley Collier has recommended. Again, I mentioned the phasing, and as early on in my presentation, I mentioned the timeline, which was included in the legislation of December 30th. So with that in mind, we envision this project, or these improvements being constructed in 2 phases. And phase 1 would effectively focus on the demolition, removal of the second set of doors, and preparing the area for the installation of the security desk and the temperature screening equipment. And then at some point in the hopefully not too distant future, but that will be determined by the commissioners, we would complete that work by coming back and installing that glass that I showed you, and also addressing some additional security measures around that station. Apologize for, well, maybe you can see that all right. Hopefully you can see it on your handouts. In terms of the cost estimate for the work at the main entrance, you can see phase 1, so that will be, again, the demolition, removal of second set of doors, installation of the desk itself, other related improvements, possibly some electrical, heating and air. The estimate that Oakley Collier has provided us is about $172,000. Again, I mentioned early on in the presentation that the county had set aside $150,000, but if approved, the finance director feels relatively confident that we could find the additional funding needed to complete this work. And then to complete the full project as envisioned, phase 2 would come back, and cost estimate there is about $84,000, so that would come back. Possible remove. I should have said initially, we likely would have some interim measure, maybe as plexiglass, maybe as some other freestanding glass at that station, should we decide to man it at times, just as a security measure. But phase 2 would be to come back and add that bullet-resistant glass and some of the other elements that Oakley Collier has identified. Any questions about that? I don't want to spend a lot of time on it, but at the same time, if you have any questions, I'd like to answer them while you have them on your mind. The thought would be to make that entrance exit only, and then we would have signage that would direct guests around to the rear of the building. While we do have some guests coming through the front, maybe from the courthouse, we do not have a lot of parking in front of the building. We have some on Washington Street, a little bit on Body Street, although it's not very common for vehicles to park there. But the intent would be, yes, to direct guests to the rear of the building and come through this station.
Okay, and you may have said this also. The temperature sensors that you walk through, can those also be used as metal detectors, this model that we're looking at?
That I do not know, and I didn't believe that was mentioned or not.
I believe Oakley Collier has recommended the same unit that the school system is using, and the other evening at the joint meeting, they did say that those could double as metal detectors.
Okay.
So we can look to make sure it has that functionality, or at least see what that functionality would cost.
Mr. Belfield?
Yes, I was reading here where you say that the elevators is giving people the opportunity to bypass the screening station. Can't those elevators be controlled? Maybe just the handicapped people use them and the others use the stairway?
Well, again, we have two elevators. We have the one internal to the building and one immediately as you enter the building. So we would certainly retain an access for any customers that have any physical impairments that need access to an elevator. Initially, the manager mentioned, long-term kind of vision is to have that station staffed. Initially, we do not have staffing identified to do that. So we have reached out to ThyssenKrupp, who has the contract to maintain our buildings here, and about possibly could we reprogram the unit closer to the entrance to the building. So again, it's only exit only. Challenge there may be if someone's coming out of the elevator, it's kind of hard to keep somebody from stepping into the elevator if there's no personnel present. But to the degree that we can to force customers to come into the building through the scanner before they access the elevator internal to the building or to the stairwell. But we're always going to make sure to have provision to accommodate customers that have any kind of physical limitations.
So you're talking about the area, the little space in there between entering and going into the hallway? Is this where you're thinking about maybe setting up the screening process?
So again, this, if roughly, this is where the existing second set of doors is right here. So you can see this station is set back behind those doors in that lobby area in front of DSS. So it's further into the building, into the interior of the building behind that second set of doors, which will be removed. But that's what we're proposing to locate this desk.
Is that going to be large enough?
Is the desk going to be large enough?
Mm-hmm.
I believe it will be.
For a
Yes, sir.
screening station?
Again, the screening will take place, the scanner will be on this side, the left side, we're looking north, or when you come in to the right. And
Other questions,
we
Mr.
would have a mechanism here, I don't, honestly, again, we haven't drilled that far down into it, whether there's some kind of gate to keep customers from coming in and bypassing the station to the left. So you would have to come through the open scanner to the right of the desk.
If you had enough room there, which you may not, you might could put some little bar in front of the elevator exit that would make you not start to that door, but yet get out and be able to exit and meet ADA requirements possibly, I see.
Right.
The other thing, while you're talking to the elevator people, see if there's a possibility of, since we have the two slowest elevators in the county, see if there's a way to increase those speeds, just, somewhat, if you're going to put us to one elevator going up. What are you laughing at, Mr. Lang?
They are slow.
I mean, they're just, there may be a way to reprogram the elevator to give it a little bit more foot per second on the movement of it. I'm not sure.
See if we can increase their capacity.
Sure.
We'll see if we can increase their capacity.
Right.
All right.
Other questions, comments, Mr.?
Go ahead, Ms. Lewis.
Ms. Lewis?
No, I was just listening, I love the idea of temperature check. My question is, if I come in and it registers I have a temperature, what would you do?
Initially,
Yeah.
I believe there will be, and again, we haven't drilled down too far, there would be some kind of audible signal here to let you know, just like the freestanding unit we have now says your temperature is normal, that this particular unit would alert the guests that your temperature is out of range. And I'm not sure if there will actually be recording with the unit, or we will have some guidance there by that temperature station that would say, you know, if you get a temperature reading that's out of range, you need to call, you know, kind of like we have today. But there would be some kind of alert to let the customer know, the guest know, that their temperature is out of range.
Mr. Chairman, after her.
Mr. Outlaw, go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah,
I
I
think he started.
guess I'm a little bit confused on the first elevator, but there's been enough discussion on it, I'm sure you'll figure that out. But if you remove those doors and you come to a station where you've got one or two people, and you have the potential, like Ms. Leggett said, for a metal detector along with a temperature check, what would be the purpose of those two people if you had a situation where metal was detected? You probably haven't thought that out completely yet, but my point is this. If you're going to invest money to have a station where you've got people that are going to be there, then it would certainly, I think, be wise to have a metal detector. If you're going to invest in the people,
Right.
Invest in that.
Right.
And I think at that point, if somebody comes through that scanning station and they check their temperature and that's good, but metal, it picks up metal, then I would think, wouldn't you want to prevent that person from going any further? And so with that said, it seems to me like you would want a doors on both sides of that station that would be kept locked until those people or persons sitting at that desk determined that these people had passed the test, and therefore they could enter on into the building. If they didn't pass, then, and I know this is longer term, it would cost more money, but it would seem to me that you would want to have a lockdown capability for the exterior doors. That's just something to think about. I know they have that out at the community college. And also, you would not have access to the stairs, would you, when you come in, when you go through the temperature check,
would
would
not.
you have access to the stairs?
Longer term, no. You would have to, someone at the station would have to basically allow you to enter the stairwell.
Yeah. I guess my longer concern would be for the safety aspect of it, not so much related to temperature check, but more related to the fact that someone could come in with a weapon, and if you detect metal at that point, then you want to shut that down right then. If they check out okay, then you could buzz them on through and they could go on wherever they're going. But would we have people probably positioned at that station that had the capabilities to deal with the safety issue? I mean, it wouldn't just be a receptionist that you would hire to sit there and answer the phone, or it would have to be someone that would have some skills in law enforcement, I would think.
Yeah, I think the thought was we would try to find some retired law enforcement, whether it be county, town, Nashville, city. But yes, they would have some experience in that area. Correct. It would not just be a receptionist that would answer questions and direct people. It would be somebody who could intervene and address the issue as needed.
Well,
as far as the second set of doors, don't recall us having that conversation with Oakley.
Well, I like
certainly
the-
that's something we could add. It's really just a question of how aggressive a posture
I
we would take.
like the idea, but if you're going to do something like this, if you don't do it all now, at least do what you do now to allow for that to be done in the future, because you certainly, if you're going to check for metal and you detect metal, then what you going to do?
Right.
You don't want that person to advance on into the facility if you're picking up metal on them without some additional checks. And that glass in that structure, that glass, I assume, is bulletproof,
That's the
as is the
recommendation.
structure below it,
Yes, it would have Kevlar.
and it should be high enough where I can't,
Correct.
okay, all right.
Again, we haven't talked all the way through this, but my guess is we would probably not implement the metal detection capabilities until we had staff on site. Because again, to your point, if I walk in with my belt buckle sets the metal detector off and that station is not manned, what do I do? And if we have to send somebody down there every time somebody comes in with a metal belt buckle, it's going to be quite disruptive.
Okay, thank you.
I got a
Other
comment.
commissioners?
I got a comment. I'm thinking, like I think Sue and Wayne's thinking, we should do this for long term, and the main thing should be security here. If we gonna spend all this money just for COVID's gonna be gone and forgotten. We could hire a person to stand down there at that temperature machine right now and make sure everybody got their temperature checked. So if we're gonna do all this, I think it should be a security thing, because COVID's just temporary, and I think the security thing should be our main goal here. Maybe not today or next week or in the next 6 months, but the main goal should be security for people coming in and out, not the main thing being COVID and checking people's temperature.
Yeah, in no way are we
what we got
recommending
right
that
there if you had somebody stand down there all day and make everybody get it checked.
For no way we recommend that the county commissioners approve the expenditure of any money that would not further our efforts to address security concerns. The real time issue for us is if we want to defray some of those expenses for those security-related improvements, and we want to use COVID money to do it, we have a fairly short window of time to do it. But in no way are we advocating spending money just to spend money. It's to advance our efforts on security-related issues. But there's only certain improvements that can be funded and paid for with COVID money. And if we start talking about more of a security focus, that becomes a little more problematic.
As long as we do it with that in mind.
Correct.
That when COVID's gone, we got something we can use for security.
Correct.
Okay.
I want to see it start going.
All right, so
Mr. Chairman.
good feedback on the elevator, good
If I may.
feedback on the
Give me 1 second, Mr. Boone.
Yeah, I want to reiterate what's been said. We've been looking at security in this building long before COVID. As Jonathan said, this gives us an opportunity to use some COVID money for COVID screening, but to also address in a very comprehensive way our security concerns. Jonathan is not wanting to say we're going to have somebody there, but it will be our recommendation that immediately that we have someone, probably give the Sheriff's Department office an additional position, because I would prefer it to be an armed person because of the security concerns, and have them man this just as they man the courthouse, is the way I see it.
Thank you, Mr. Lamb. Mr. Boone.
All right. So after we turn our attention from the entrance, then the next set of recommendations you would see in the report, once you reviewed it, would be the assessment of the individual department needs within the building, and these are more focused on security improvements. Although we have several departments that obviously have higher foot traffic than others in terms of guests coming into the facility. So some of their recommendations are, again, somewhat of a hybrid between addressing COVID-related concerns, but also security-related concerns. But as outlined in the report, we have not attempted to break down the cost and allocate them between COVID and security for the departmental-related improvements. But that's something that we can work through. But initially, the thought was these would be CIP-funded related improvements. It would be something we would bring to you during budget preparation for your consideration, and then we would program those as funds are available to do so. So I will run through those right quickly. First, we have the planning department. Again, a fairly open area you'll see here. And effectively what the recommendation would be is to kind of create a lobby, take this existing area, construct some walls, some desks to serve the customers as they come in, counters, if you will. These would be protected by glass, but basically take the existing area and build freestanding walls around it, and then have a security access. If someone needed to come back, meet with the department head, meet with one of the planners to talk about a project, they could do so. But basically take the existing footprint and just build some walls up around that to enclose that space. Again, this is one of the areas that has quite a bit of foot traffic coming into the building. We heard from a developer earlier discussing, and also environmental health has a position posted in this area. to deal with customers.
Before you move on, Jonathan, so would the people that come into that area, would they not have access beyond that area? Would there be some type of voice-through system where they would have to be buzzed in, or?
Correct. So this will be the door that they will be buzzed through if the matter they have, the business they have cannot be handled by one of these 3 workstations here.
Okay,
And it's basically the 3 workstations that they have today.
so they can't go beyond that point unless they're buzzed through?
That is correct. Tax office similarly, we're getting ready to be busy in the tax office here at the end of the year. And we've addressed some concerns on the collection side. On the tax listing side, we still have this open area here, kind of 2 cubicles that are configured. And what you'll see is, again, the recommendation is to basically build a storefront here with a security access here. If for some reason, a lot of business can be conducted right here in the front of the office, but should they need to pass them through to someone in the back, should they need to go see someone in mapping, that staff could buzz them through and then they could go back to the rear. This would basically build a storefront here. Again, this would be primarily a glass enclosure, pass-throughs as needed so they could pass paperwork, but a secure access to allow customers to pass into the back if there's a need to do so. Parks and Recreation, again, existing open area. Been Parks and Rec, it's Tamika's desk here. And the intent would be to just, again, maintain more or less the same footprint, just install a wall, glass customer service window, security door where folks can be buzzed back if they need to be, and Tamika would retain her work area here. Finance, most of their customers are internal, so while we do have a kind of a lobby, if you will, fairly small area, but we're maintaining the existing office space. There's 2 offices here, contiguous to the lobby. You may have, if you've been in, you notice there's a cubicle here, but it's the access between the finance department and the county manager's office. That would be addressed by installing a permanent wall here, and then this space would either be an office space or a storage space for the department. Again, this would be the secure access. Customer service window would be added to this office, so again, anyone needs a drop-off, primarily internal customers. Like myself, I've been known to aggravate finance from time to time. If they don't want to let me back, they just don't buzz me through. They make me deal with Mary here at the window, but they would have that capability. County manager's office, again, this is a wall, but just mentioned between finance and county manager's office. We'd maintain the area here for customers as they come in, if they need to wait to meet with the manager or the assistant manager. But we'd have a secure access here where they could be buzzed back, and then we've created 2 workspaces on the front. So again, not particularly invasive, just adding some new walls, workstations. We try to be thoughtful. Certainly, Oakley College try to be thoughtful about the proposed improvements, but try to do a better job of just controlling access into the building.
How about at that point right there, instead of going back, how about if you turn left to go over straight, see it straight ahead? Is that also controlled?
I'm sorry, could you ask that question again?
All right, you see where the chairs are, you see the corridor, the aisle, the hallway?
Yes, sir.
Is that controlled as well?
Yeah, there's actually a wall here. So this is an existing wall. The new walls are in a bolder color.
So you wouldn't be able to just walk through there and go to the next hallway and go down?
Correct, no. You have to stop here unless someone buzzes you through this door.
Okay.
Human resources, again, we have a lot of customers come in, applying about jobs, applications, interviews, and the like. So we create a small lobby, but again, in essence, maintain the same footprint, install a wall, customer service window, secure access door. Emergency management, the only change here is if you've been into emergency management on the first floor. We currently have a card reader on these double doors here. Now we would propose to make the secure access to the next set of double doors, and then the existing workspace would basically maintain the same footprint. Again, just enclose that space with a wall, 2 customer service windows, and then now their access would be through the rear hallway, where they currently have an area with file room, copier, et cetera. That's how they would access their workspace, is through that hallway. Again, the secure access will just be moved from the front 2 doors to the rear 2 doors, and we'd erect a wall here. This existing opening would be closed. Those security-related improvements, you can see those, each one of those listed there, and the estimated cost, total project cost is around $240,000. Again, that's kind of a planning level number. How we propose to program this, and it certainly could affect the cost. You know, if we try to tackle one at a time, you could probably expect the cost to drift up a little bit. We can put some of these together. We might get, you know, economies of scale, a little bit better prices, but planning level numbers anticipate those improvements to cost roughly $240,000 in today's dollars.
How about veteran services? I know I see a lot of times when I come up to the 3rd floor, I'll see veterans sitting out in the large corridor, waiting to get into the veterans area.
Correct. We've added a secure lock with a key code on that. I'm not sure that space is quite big enough for a lobby. Again, I'm honestly not as familiar with that space.
Yeah, we did look at that space with Oakley Collier. One of the things that we did talk about in that area was providing them with a second door to be able to exit their area, because they just have the one front door at this point in time. So we're looking at putting a second door along the corridor that heads back to the break room so that they've got a second way to get out of there. But we haven't really focused on any type of counter or reception area for them. They just kind of have an open lobby, and then they're in 2 offices in that space. But we can continue to look at that space and see what can be done there.
Yeah, would you look at that? Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, so again, the intent of our report today is just first get your feedback on the proposed improvements, again, primarily focusing on the public entrance. Again, the departmental level improvements we will likely revisit during our budget preparation later this fiscal year. But again, we have a fairly short time frame to work with, although, you know, we certainly would welcome some additional time should the federal government be so inclined to complete these projects. Our mindset is we want to try to do the best we can to get this done, as much as we can get done by the end of this calendar year. So again, I got some good feedback so far, made notes of that, but certainly welcome any other feedback you have. But the intent would be to, already discuss with Oakley Collier, again, not only the phasing, but kind of a timetable for moving forward. With your blessing, we're looking to host a few contractors here next week to look at the proposed improvement, get their feedback, and then finalize a kind of a bid package, if you will. Anticipate this would be an informal bid, but such that we could get unit prices in, get proposals in, and get work started before the end of this month, again, with the goal of completing this work by the 23rd of next month, in order to use those COVID funds that I mentioned earlier, the CRF funds, and then come back to you later in the budget year to revisit some of these security level improvements at the departmental level. So with that said, I'll be glad to answer any other questions that you may have.
Other comments, questions from board members?
I was looking at the human resource area and that hallway that goes through there. You going to technology or the break room. Is there any way you can minimize that traffic so they wouldn't have to go through the human? I know it's not that much going into the technology area.
I believe the area you're referring to, this is a public hallway here, outside of the footprint of human resources. So you do not need to pass through human resources to get to the break room area. There's a dedicated.
I know you don't get to the break room area, but most people I have noticed go through the human service office if they go into the technology area.
Okay, well, I will discuss that with Anderson, and we'll discuss that at the staff level. I was not aware of that, but certainly something we can look into.
I believe, Mr. Chairman, The door that connects that hallway is a one-way door. You can't come into the human resources area. You can only go out that door to go to the hallway. To the hallway that goes back to the training center and the break room.
Yeah, the door off this hallway to, that will come into the side of Human Resources have a card reader on it.
Right.
So only county staff can open that door. Now, if you're in Human Resources, it's exit. You're free to exit. But you can enter into Human Resources from this hallway, which I'm sorry, it's just off the screen. That door is right about here. It has a card reader on it. But this public hallway, it just makes a big U because the technology training room is, roughly up in here. Break room is over here. But this hallway connects to the lobby in two different locations.
Ms. Leggett, did you have a comment?
I did. I had a question. In two different places, you had a table for the proposed budget or just rough numbers. One was, had the phased and full build-out, the phased COVID, and then the full build-out security. The total between the two of those was $256,000. And then later on in the presentation, there was one for the security-related projects. Those are two separate budgets. Is that correct?
Those are correct. The security-related improvements really, if you take phase 2 of the improvements at the public entrance, we're calling those more security.
Okay.
So it's like 240 plus 80, 320 is security, and the remainder is COVID. That phase 1 is the COVID money.
And we've got $150,000 already that can be used towards the COVID upgrades?
We've allocated 150, and there's some additional funds available if we need them for the COVID improvements.
Okay, thank you.
Other comments?
So what I'm really, and I'm kind of thick sometimes, y'all know that, but we spend all this money at the entrance for COVID screening and for security. We go in here and change these other areas, is that COVID money we're spending for that, or is that?
No.
So is this something we have needed to do for a long time and hadn't mentioned it, or is this,
I'm like Dan.
I just don't quite understand why we got to go, why are we doing this now?
Well,
You've got security and you've got temperature. When you get all that, you've got it all checked. Everybody else coming in, you've checked everybody coming in the building, so it ought to be okay.
I guess my comment to that would be, one, our primary emphasis at this point is that public entrance. Those other improvements, we will discuss those. Our intent would be to bring those to you for a more in-depth discussion during the capital improvement program budgeting process. We're not proposing to move forward on those right now. We're really focusing on those COVID improvements, getting the project done by the end of this calendar year if commissioners are so inclined to do so. If not, then we do not have to move forward. But we wanted to look at the issues in this building holistically.
You got me understanding why we cover the COVID, and in that we're going to also hopefully include security.
Right.
Because when COVID's gone. But, okay, phase 1 and phase 2, okay.
Did you want to say something? Mr.
Yes,
Bowden?
if I
Then
could.
have some comments of my own.
After the Chesapeake situation a couple years ago, where somebody went in there and shot up the municipal building, we have been looking at security issues throughout this building, and I appreciate Jonathan and Stacy and Ann Collier looking at this entire building on the security side, not just the COVID side. I believe that long-term what they've done is they've created situations where we can help improve security in these individual offices. In the county manager's office, it also opens up another office. If you notice, there will be 2 administrative seats when you walk in. One will be the clerk, one will be Emily, who is the economic development receptionist, or assistant, whatever her title is. So in that situation, we're actually opening up an office as part of that. Most of the improvements in individual offices, though, deal with the security of the employees. And that's what we've been looking at for several years now. And while we were doing the COVID improvements, we thought, let's go ahead and come up with a plan for additional offices.
If you've done security at the front entrance, you've closed the one on the front, everybody's coming back here and they're going through that metal detectors, if we're talking about security, then how else can anybody with a gun or something get in this building if that's the only entrance you have coming in here?
Well, the only thing you can't bring in this building is a concealed weapon. Someone can bring in, under current law,
But they got to come through down there, security,
but nothing.
metal detector.
If somebody's got an open rifle, I'm not sure we can prevent them from walking in the building.
The only other thing I would add to that, the incident in Virginia was an employee. So I don't think
It's
the intent
employee's
is we're
husband.
going to funnel
Oh, no, that's right.
everyone, all employees, all guests through one entrance. We're still going to maintain employee entrances. And in these individual departments, my department's a good example. We have a code reader on the door. Not everyone's badge will open that door. So if a disgruntled employee from DSS decides to take out some frustration on some employees here in the building, they cannot get through that door. They might have free reign on in the DSS annex, but they wouldn't have access to the door in planning. They wouldn't have access to get through the door in tax. They wouldn't have access to get through the door in public utilities and facilities. So there is the potential for bad actors outside of just guests to the building, also to employees. Now, I guess we could look at making everyone come into a single access. I think that would be a little problematic, but certainly we could look at that. But anything we could do to make it, to slow down a bad actor and give the folks across the street with the badges and guns an opportunity to respond to the building is probably worth considering. Whether we do it or not, when we do it, that's a decision for this board to make. But the thought would be anything we can do to make the building more secure would be at least worth considering.
Well, just one comment. I think what you're doing is worth looking at because you may stop the person with the metal gun or whatever at that first entrance, but when that person gets into the facility, I don't know what their emotions are and what they're dealing with, what's going on during their day. They may be having a bad day and they're dealing with a bad situation, and if they don't hear the results that they want to hear, then they potentially, or expect to hear it, then they could potentially cause havoc in other ways. So I think it's worth looking at. You've got control of the people once they come up into the areas, and you got some feel as to whether or not they're gonna do like they should do while they're up there. So that's just me. You haven't spent anything to look at it.
Other comments? I would just say in closing, Mr. Boone and Mr. Lamb, I think what we're doing is probably a good thing. I do, during this period of time, in visiting many other county facilities and municipal facilities, you can get to a point where you become customer unfriendly, and that has been the case in many places. There are numerous county office buildings where you can't even go in anymore, but it's COVID-related, granted. But always keep in mind to make it as customer-friendly as you can, because when the customers stop coming to our facility, we stop needing us in the facility. I do know safety becomes more of a concern every year, and I'm not wanting to stop what you do, but now, for instance, in one municipality in Nash County, when I go, it is very difficult to get to any department, and it has caused a lot of frustration through numerous industries, particularly the building industry that I'm most familiar with. So always keep in mind that we are here, and we've done a wonderful job in Nash County of continuing to serve the customers during COVID. Absolutely wonderful job, and we get many compliments because of that. But just always keep that in mind. With that said, I'll I like the idea of the front. I'm like Mr. Combs, I might question the idea of needing to do that and then continue, but y'all the experts, and keep that one thing in mind. I say at all my building codes meetings to all the members of that council, gentlemen, we can always what if ourselves out of existence if we so choose to work in that manner. That said, I'll be quiet. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Boone, you finished, I think? Okay.
He said he hopes so.
Did he ask for approval?
Are we getting ready to vote on that? Yes, sir. And I'm trying to phrase right, the approval for item number 14 is a motion to approve or deny the request. Mr. Boone, can you state exactly what the request is? Because I'm a little bit confused. Is it to work hard from now to the end of the year to
Phase one.
spend the COVID money? Is that what we're doing, phase one? Is that the request?
I think the request, although I may need to defer to the author. I think the request is conceptually to move forward with the proposed improvements. We need to further refine those, but with the proposed improvements to the public entrance and use of the CRF funds to cover that expense. Would that be
Yes.
Is
accurate?
the author satisfied with that explanation?
Yes, we definitely need to approve the CRF funds.
And we'll have a budget amendment at the next meeting, or you have it today?
COVID money already categorized
Okay.
in our CRF money. We just set some of it aside, it's category 2. And so we considered use of that fund for monitoring and entering the building.
I'm going to call for a motion to approve or deny the request. And the request is, Mr. Boone again?
To modify the public entrance and use CRF funds for that purpose.
And this board will see it, you're doing it informal, so we will not see it again.
You will see it if you ask to see it.
Well, I don't know that if we're talking about phase one, does any board member wish to see it again? Which is what we're doing with the COVID funds.
The only thing I'd like to do is, like I said, is I'd like to see it be designed keeping security for the future in mind.
And I think they're doing that. So if we do it like Mr. Boone just stated, the work will continue, the process will continue, but informal bids will come in and they'll get awarded by the manager's office and finance director, and we'll see the results of the construction. I want you to understand that's what's going to happen. Everybody okay with that?
All right.
Okay, I'd entertain a motion to approve the request as Mr. Boone just stated.
I make that motion, Mr. Chairman, that we move forward with phase one.
Okay. A motion by Commissioner Belfield, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Commissioner Outlaw and Commissioner Richardson. Any questions on the motion? All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign. Motion is carried to continue moving forward through construction with phase one with the COVID funds available.
Thank you.
We are now on item number 15. Mr. Boone, you may need to stick around for that in case we have a question, but the action and renovation project ordinance amendment. Ms. Wood, good after, well, still good morning.
Good morning. The first item I have on the agenda is the Ag Center renovation ordinance. It's an amendment to the project. The attached project ordinance amendment is submitted to adjust the project line item accounts based on project expenditures and to update the board on the transfer and use of contingency funds within the project. There were contingency funds of $30,000. The county manager approved $21,500 from contingency to cover a portion of the cost to replace the chiller in the Board of Elections area. That was not part of the original HVAC construction project, and $8,500 to replace the carpeting in the farm services area, agency area. And this just, and so the amendment is just reallocating those funds.
Because they were sitting in the contingency fund.
That is correct.
Okay. Any questions on this project order?
I've got one question.
Yes, ma'am.
When I went to vote this past week, there was a leak right in the lobby area of the Ag Center. Is that associated with these repairs?
It wouldn't be with these repairs because this was at the Board of Elections end, but I do know the leak you're speaking of. Mr. Boone, you know what that was about? Was it roof related or HVAC related?
Honestly, I do not.
Okay. What if you look into it and let Mr. Leggett know?
Thank you.
I think it, from my recollection of where a large unit is, it could well have been an air conditioning issue right then, right where it was at. Any other questions on this? Entertain a motion for approval of the project ordinance amendment.
So moved.
approval.
Have a motion by Ms. Wells, second by Mr. Bellfield. Any questions on the motion? All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign. Number 15 stands approved. Moving to item 16.
Number 16 is with the Northern Ash Water System Project. The attached project amendment is submitted to appropriate $135,000 additional funding for the Blue Heron Water Main Extension. This amendment assumes that the proposed development agreement to the landing at Copperfield subdivision is approved as a part of the Northern Ash Water System Project. Revenue for the proposed agreement includes third-party developer fees of $76,600 and a transfer of general fund balance in the amount of $58,400 to the project.
Any questions on this? It was associated with the item, which one, Mr. Boone, on the agenda, item 12? Yes, sir. Okay. Not, I entertain a motion for approval.
Move approval.
Moved by Mr. Bellfield. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Combs. Any questions on the motion? All in favor, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign. Motion stands approved. We added item 16A to the agenda, which was at your table, I think, when you came in. If you would pull that out, it says at the top, COVID-19 Grant Project Ordinance Amendment Number 5.
The attached project ordinance is submitted to amend the Special Revenue Grant Project Ordinance for additional coronavirus grant funding awarded. New funding is available for the Health Department and Board of Elections. The Health Department has been awarded $124,033 from the CARES Act Coronavirus Relief Fund provided by the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services. This is to support infection prevention related to the related activities. The next item is for the Board of Elections. They've been awarded $32,500 from the CARES Act supplemental funds to prevent, prepare for, and respond to coronavirus pandemic during the 2020 federal election.
Questions on either of these? It's just more COVID funds coming in.
More COVID funds coming in.
Entertain a motion for approval.
Move for approval?
Moved by Commissioner Leggett. Is there a second? Second by Commissioner Richardson. Questions on the motion? All in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign. Ordinance stands approved. Moving to item number 17, which is our regular budget amendment.
Okay.
Ms. Wood?
Okay, the first budget amendment is for the senior center. This budget amendment is to appropriate funds for donations received for Project Lifesaver activities, $600. No county funds are required. Next item is with Cooperative Extension. This budget amendment is to budget grant funds from North Carolina State University for the Nash County Farmers Market to purchase refrigeration units to store farm and table produce boxes for the related program. It's $1,200. No county funds are required. The next item is within Travel and Tourism. This budget amendment is to budget a $15,000 grant awarded from North Carolina Tourism Recovery Committee for coronavirus aid, relief, and economic security. These funds will be used for making efforts for Nash County tourism, and it goes to their special revenue fund. That's $15,000, no county funds.
Question.
Sure.
Does it go directly to travel and tourism budget?
It does go directly to their budget, to their specific funds.
Where did it come from? Out of COVID funds as well?
It came from COVID funds. It's part of a North Carolina Tourism Recovery Committee that awarded the funds. And I believe Barbara's office is seeking additional grant funds as well.
have you had discussions with Barbara about this, and do we have a potential funding source?
Funding use?
Potential funding expenditure, I'm sorry.
Yes, actually, she does, and I believe it has something to do with her marketing efforts for North Carolina, for this area.
Okay, I'll discuss it with her.
Okay.
Thank you.
The next item is with our fire district fund. So the attached amendments to appropriate Castelia Fire Department fund balance in order for the fire department to receive funding as budgeted from the approved increase in tax rate in fiscal year 1920 from 7.85 cents to 11 cents. They were supposed to receive additional $52,143, but the budget was not adjusted to coincide with their tax increase. So we're just funding the money they should have received through fund balance appropriation, their fund balance appropriation. And then the final item is the general fund transfer. This budget amendment is to appropriate fund balance from the general fund to transfer to the Northern Ash Water Sewer Fund, the Blue Heron Water Main Extension Project, to cover the county's portion of the extension until funding is available to reimburse the general fund. It's $58,400.
Was that at our table when we came in?
That should have been a revised budget amendment. It should have been in front
It
of.
is at the table.
Okay, it was left up here. It's not on the iPad.
No, it's not on the
Okay, I
iPad.
see it. I find it. Okay, it coincides with a previous item. I'm with that. All right, that was a total of 5 budget amendments. Any questions on either of the 5? Entertain a motion for approval. So moved. Moved by Commissioner Combs, there a second?
Second.
Second, Commissioner Belfield. Questions on the motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed by a like sign? 5 amendments stand approved. Thank you, Ms. Wood.
Thank you.
Going to 18, which is board appointments. Stacy, you have any?
No, sir, just still the one for travel and tourism this month.
Gotcha, okay. I think I remember we had quite a few coming up in December.
Yes.
If the board can be looking at that list on your iPads and be prepared to hopefully work through those. Monthly tax reports, item number 19. Doris, you've been patient this morning. Good afternoon.
Thank you, very good.
Almost.
Almost.
Within a minute anyway.
All right. At this time, I'd like to present the monthly tax report. As you know, this report is designed to keep the board current on activities in the tax collector's office. The report is for your information only and does not require approval. It is recommended that you accept the report so that it'll be noted in the minutes. And if there are any questions, I'll be glad to answer.
Questions on the monthly tax report? Are you, Mr. Lamb, still smiling?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, great. Any objection to accepting the report? Report is accepted. You are also item number 20, which is tax refunds. Ms. Sumner, while you're here.
Yes, sir, and we do not have any refunds this month for consideration.
Okay, no refunds. Thank you, ma'am.
All right, thank you.
As always, thank you for the job you do,
Oh, thank you, sir.
and your staff,
Thank you.
which you depend on, I'm sure. All right, we're on item number 21, which is commissioner comments. Any commissioner have an item to bring before the board at this time? Seeing no one, I will just make my comment, as I do monthly, about housing starts. Looking at them on a weekly basis, I thought we weren't going to have a good month, but we had an excellent month. We actually had 41 new home permits issued. If you run the math on the average of those homes, you end up with about $110 million annual increase in our total assessed value. I think, Mr. Lamb, we're going to have to continue to watch that number. I do anticipate the 43 is going to grow even more, and we've just got to watch our staffing situation, make sure we're not the holdup over here to getting those new homes permitted and moved along because it's just a great resource, as long as the board agrees that that's a great way to build our total assessed value. And also helps Mr. Boone quite a bit in his water system budget. Every customer will helps make those numbers work a little bit better. I am pleased that we did have the joint meeting last week with the school board. My observation when I left there that night, when I got home, my wife asked me how it went. She knows I'm always a little nervous about those meetings, but I may be over-optimistic, but I felt like it was somewhat of a new day. I hope the other board members did. I felt like they did an excellent presentation of their material that they wanted to present to us. They did it very quickly. You really had to listen to keep up. It was very well organized, and I felt quite a bit less tension in the room than I had felt in prior meetings. But I'm just left there very positive about that meeting. I hope everyone else did. And that's really all I had to say, and if no other commissioner has anything, I will go to item number 22, which is the manager's report. Mr. Lamb?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Just a few things here. Reminder that next Wednesday, November the 11th, is Veterans Day, and the county offices will be closed next Wednesday. On Tuesday, in honor of our veterans, the Veterans Office will have a table outside with coffee and donuts, encouraging veterans to come, and they're welcome to come. Thank you. Reminder that the second meeting in November is November the 16th at 1:30. County offices, of course, will be closed Thanksgiving Day, November 26th, and Friday, the 27th, for the Thanksgiving holiday. We are in the midst, technically have finished our United Way campaign. We have not yet reached our 35% participation goal, but we do have 176 pledges that total 30,000. That number continues to increase. I think we're going to hold it open, if we could, for the rest of this week and try to get that amount up a little bit. But I do want to thank everyone involved in the United Way campaign. The matter regarding Cecil Williams, we did have a meeting, I think it was Friday, to address that issue that Mr. Williams brought up. We had one person out with sickness in that division, and another vacancy. We were under the impression that the health department authorized Mr. Williams and his developer to pursue a private soil scientist and get quite a discount on the fees. We've done that before when we were short, and they thought that had been agreed upon, but we will check into that to make sure they know. We do have a lot of pending inspections, and we are doing everything we can. I am aware of a person that retired after 30 years in a nearby jurisdiction. He retired at the end of September, and I have reached out to him to see if he wanted to work part-time, and he's working on a couple projects right now, but he may be with us part-time in January, which would help us then. I know the man very well. Very reliable, very good, few complaints. So We are addressing that shortfall, but again, part of it was sickness, and we do have one vacancy, and as y'all know, that is probably one of the hardest positions to fill in county government. Just like to say that we have gotten our notification for our September collections, which will be sales tax collections, which will be distributed around the 15th of November. It was 1.39 million, which is above the average per month, and not as quite as high as the last 2 months, but for the first 3 months, the first quarter, we are very much ahead of budget. So if we should be 25%, I think we're over 30%, so of our budgeted amount. So sales taxes continue to come in, and it's really been the pleasant surprise of COVID is that our sales tax, like some jurisdictions, had quite a hit. We continue to collect above what we did prior to COVID, so that's really good. I want to thank Janice so much. I've been in other jurisdictions, and I'm just so impressed that she had the minutes ready for Thursday night that y'all approved today.
I noticed that.
And that is remarkable. I've never seen such quick turnaround before, but that's the way she operates, and I just want to thank you, Janice. Yeah. And again, I want to let Miss Lou know that we appreciate you, staff appreciates you, I appreciate you, and don't be a stranger when you leave next month, but we'll miss you a lot.
Thank you.
All right.
That's all I have.
That sum it up? Okay. Any other
Chairman.
close? Yes, sir.
May I ask the county manager a question?
Sure.
This is as it relates to the COVID-19 virus. I notice we're having a upturn in deaths as well as cases. The committee that following everything, have they looked at what might be causing this at this time? Is it the weather, or is it that people are congregating and pushing it up?
I think for the longest time, Nash County was very fortunate that we did not have outbreaks in our congregate care facilities. Unfortunately, that spread has occurred throughout the nation, throughout the state, and we've seen some spread in several of ours. That's one factor, and I think anytime you have a lot of people together, it causes problems. The numbers are increasing so much, it's hard to contact trace. But I do know that the health department and others, Jonathan Edwards, others, are trying to come up with a public service announcement type campaign to encourage people to adhere to the 3 W's, wear your mask, socially distance, and wash your hands. But, you know, there's 42 states in the last month have shown increases. I don't know if it's because it's getting cooler, which was predicted months ago, that in the fall and winter, the numbers would probably go up again during flu season. But I know it's bothering the health department, and it's bothering this board, it's bothering the state. But we continue to do what we can to encourage people to wear masks, to socially distance, and to be careful. I don't know if I can't give you the answer to the problem, and I don't think Mr. Hill can.
I was just wondering if the committee had discussed it and as to what they would think.
After we received that letter from the governor's office, and even before, we have been looking locally to see what we can do locally to cut down on those numbers. So,
It's amazing how some people don't seem to care, and they just still not wearing masks. For example, I have witnessed in the past week, I think there are motorcycle gangs, motorcycle groups, not necessarily a gang, having cookouts. And I moved past them real slow to see how many of them were wearing the mask. It looked like half of them were. And they congregated together, having a cookout. I've seen it on both sides. It's in Rocky Mountain, on the Edgecombe side and the Nash side. And it's amazing. I tell you, where I felt like getting out there, stopping and saying something to them.
don't do that.
But
Kind of motorcycle.
I know those guys are not all that pleasant for to hear you say something like that to them, so I didn't, for my own safety.
Yeah.
But
You must have had
it's
the bride with
amazing.
you.
My wife tell me, said, Fred, you just have to keep on praying that folks will realize this thing is deadly.
Yeah.
And some people don't care.
Well, this week, we will reach the 4% of our population will have been positive at one time or another since March. So, and that, we were at 2% maybe a month ago. And we went to 3% 2 weeks ago, and we're going to get to 4% this week. So it is spreading, and again, the health department's doing everything they can to try to limit that spread. It's just, you got people, you read on social media that masks don't work, and some people just don't want to do what's best for them and their families, but. That's
All right, I think we have a closed session, and it is for economic development and matter of attorney-client privileges. I don't think it'll be a long session, but at this time, I'd entertain a motion to go into closed session. Moved by Commissioner Leggett, second by Commissioner Wells. Any questions on the motion? All in favor, let it be known by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed by a like sign? We will go into closed session in 10 minutes. We'll take a short break.